take off in Tempelhof.
Overtake?
Yes, let's use the power.
Evans is through.
I got spun. Oh, man.
Oh, contact, that's Mortara.
Full push, full push.
Gloves are off, elbows out.
7 podiums, 4 wins. A string of results unheard of.
The man is on fire. Domination, baby.
Can anyone catch Oliver Rowland? Hello and welcome to the Hankook Berlin E-Prix live from the Tempelhof Street Circuit. We're ready for the second instalment of qualifying. Now, yesterday saw Mitch Evans storm to pole and clinch the win, but with ever-changing conditions, it is time to hit the reset button. Now, Oliver Rowland came into this weekend with a chance of becoming champion yesterday, but it couldn't have gone any worse for him with a DNF and his title rival Pascal Wehrlein on the podium. However, he still has a 50-point advantage and another opportunity to clinch his first ever championship title. Hello and welcome to qualifying here in Berlin. I'm delighted to say we have with us two drivers who would definitely overtake you on the Autobahn, Billy Munger and Andre Lotterer. Guys, welcome. We were treated to a pretty busy, chaotic race yesterday, but there is one man who triumphed. Mitch Evans there, taking the spoils from pole position, and it was a dominant win, but quite unbelievable that that was his first set of points in this year, in 2025. The last time he achieved points was the opening round in Sao Paulo back in December. Amazing result for him.
Yeah, amazing. He's normally a front runner and always fighting for the championship in the past few years. And yeah, yesterday was his show from qualifying onwards. He was untouchable. He managed to race very well by taking attack mode early, staying out of trouble, made a little gap. And he didn't want to fall back into the pack to maybe get in the mix of maybe getting hit or something. At the end, it got a little close with Pascal being a bit faster, but Pascal outbraked himself a little bit. So yeah, the win was safe for Mitch, and yeah, I think he really needed that result because a tough season like that is not nice.
It really has been. I mean, again, you look at the past performance of Jaguar here as well. They had a 1-2 back in 2023. This just seems to be a track where they race well.
Yeah, a track where they race well, and I think Mitch was obviously the standout driver in the team yesterday, but also Cassidy got some points on the board. So, you know, both drivers being in the mix and ending the season strongly for a team like Jaguar is really important.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at how the championship standings look after yesterday's race, because it was, of course, Oliver Rowland who wanted to extend his championship lead, but with a DNF, scored no more points, still on 172 points. 50 points is the gap between himself and rival Pascal Wehrlein. Taylor Barnard, after a 4th place finish, moves up to 3rd in the standings. Antonio Felix Acosta just a couple of points behind. And then 13 points split between Dan Ticktum and Sebastian Buemi, 6 drivers from 5th to 10th. Then if we look at the team standings as well, it's Porsche who have managed to extend their lead by 20 points. Nissan on 191 points. DS Penske also there, 153, and Mahindra Racing trading places with Neon McLaren, moving up to 4th after Eduardo Mortara had a podium finish yesterday. So that's how the standings look. The big question is, how can Oliver Rowland win the championship title fight today? Here are the permutations. Basically, he needs to leave today with a 58-point gap or more. To do this, he needs to outscore Pascal Wehrlein by 8 points. And Taylor Barnard or Da Costa need to outscore Rowland by 11 and 16 points respectively. So there is a quick summary of what's going to happen today. But yeah, it was just such a shame for Oliver Rowland yesterday. You know, he spun out at turn 6, had that DNF, no points on the board, which means over the last 4 races, he's only scored 11 points. Billy, is this a sign? He's cracking under pressure here, right?
I don't know if I'd call it cracking under pressure, because I still think there have been glimpses of strong performance from Oliver Rowland. Obviously, we're comparing him to the start of the season where he was just on another level to the rest of the field, hence why he's got still a 2-race victory lead over the rest of the field. But we're seeing the incident from yesterday down at turn 6 yesterday. Oliver Rowland and Stoffel Vandoorne coming together. He's tried to make the pass on the inside here, Nicky, but the conditions we had yesterday, it was actually slightly damp offline. I think that maybe caught him out slightly, picked up some understeer, and at that point kind of made the mistake, hit Stoffel Vandoorne, and that was his race done. You can see the damage that he has there, going straight in a straight line, but with the steering almost 90 degrees to the left. And Tommaso Volpe, the frustrations coming out in the Nissan garage, because it's important for the team's championship too yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, frustrations, I'm sure, all around. Tommaso Volpe is the team principal, the man leading the ship at Nissan. He's now with Saunders.
Tommaso Volpe, we've been doing a lot of talking about what it's going to take to win the championship, but something I want to talk about with you now is the other side of your job, because of course there is getting the business done on track, but there's also the management of the mentality of the drivers, keeping them in a good place. How has that been with Oliver this season and today?
Good question. Well, it's not just me, it's a team director as well, and the whole team is race engineer, is a collective management. We tend to consider the drivers, and specifically Oliver, as an employee of Nissan in a way. Is long-term commitment with us, and so it's part of the family. So whenever there is a tense moment, we tend to share it and to try to metabolize all together and to put things in perspective. Like yesterday, he made a mistake, probably the only major mistake in the whole season, which was extraordinary, and we tried just to put things in perspective. And in such an amazing season, one mistake is absolutely normal, and if anything, emotions were stronger because we are in a privileged position to win the championship potentially with 3 races ahead of the end of the season. So otherwise, if it had happened at the second race, third race, we would have just said, okay, mistake, let's move on.
Okay, well, we know what it's going to take. We know the battle is very much going to continue into today's race, potentially into London, although I know you'd like to get it done today. And now we know how you manage the mental side of it. So thank you very much, Tommaso.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you very much to Saunders and Tommaso Volpe there. I mean, he makes a very good point. You know, there are still 3 races to go. It's very unusual. We've never seen in the history of Formula E someone with such a dominant lead at this critical point in the championship. But then at the same time, you saw the disappointment from Pascal Wehrlein, who didn't manage to take the win. He took a P2. So Pascal's not giving up yet. He really isn't.
No, he definitely isn't. And I think even on a day like yesterday, which went very well for Pascal, considering he had that grid penalty, he started down in 9th and he managed to get himself onto the podium. Every single point matters when you've got such a deficit to overturn. So the fact that he'd potentially lost out on 7 more points yesterday because of that mistake towards the end of the race, which gave Mitch Evans that breathing space, that could be crucial at the end of the season. That 7 points could have been the difference between winning this championship or not.
Yeah, and of course, Antonio Felix da Costa got that. I think it was a 5-second penalty at the end of the race, which dropped him off the podium from P3 to P10. And obviously that's disappointing for his championship hopes, but also for the teams. Again, valuable points lost.
Yeah, and the main focus for the Porsche Formel E team is the championship, the Manufacturers' Championship, and that was, like you said, a lot of points. So little misjudgment of Antonio there, thinking he was clear, but then he just tipped the rear end of Jake Hughes, and yeah, it was a small penalty, but the pack was together, so it sent him back to 10th position. So quite disappointing, and also knowing Antonio, he also wanted to be in the mix for the fight for the championship. But yeah, I think the team order there for the Porsche drivers is to focus on the manufacturer's title, not to take unnecessary risks to get that under the belt. But yeah, the drivers also want to have a piece of it.
Yeah, it could have been an absolutely great result to have both of them on the podium. But it is time to reset and look ahead. Let's hear now from Porsche team principal Florian Modling on how he reflects from yesterday and looks ahead to today.
Thanks, Nicky. Yes, Florian, yesterday, almost the perfect day for Pascal Wehrlein, P2 and the fastest lap, of course, and Oliver Rowland scoring no points. This battle for the championship very much still alive.
I keep saying what I said before. We focus on the team and manufacturer world championship, which is realistic. And we are completely in the fight and in the lead now in both. And the driver's title we are not thinking about. We go all in every day. We have 3 race days to do. One is today, and we try to maximize the points. And if we get a sniff on the driver's championship, then let's speak later. But at the moment, it's not realistic.
Well, in that case, reflecting on the hopes of the teams and manufacturers trophy, not the perfect day yesterday because more points could have been scored on Da Costa's side.
Yeah, I have to say, from pure operation, mechanics, engineers, the drivers, we executed very, very well, coming from P6 and 9 on the grid and then finishing on track with P2 and P3, but then with a 5 seconds penalty for Antonio. Yeah, could have been more points, but we extended the lead in the team championship. In the manufacturer, we took the lead, and that's the target for today, to stretch these gaps and to collect as many points as possible. We will have tricky conditions. As you see, we had just a rain shower, a small one, and there are still some clouds around. We had directly into qualifying, and we will have tricky qualifying and race situation today again from the weather.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very much looking forward to seeing what can happen, because even just while we've been talking, I think it started raining, stopped raining, and started raining again. It's going to be very tricky out there, but thanks for your time. Thanks, Rory.
You're welcome.
Thank you to Saunders and Florian there. Indeed, the weather is very changeable and points are ever so critical, particularly for Oliver Rowland. Remember, in 10 minutes, qualifying will get underway and 3 valuable points are available for pole position.
Berlin has been on the race calendar since the inaugural season of Formel E and has held dramatic races over the last 10 years. One of the most memorable of these was the Season 7 finale. The championship battle went down to the wire.
It is set to be quite the crescendo to the year.
Nick de Vries started on P13 for Mercedes EQ, with second-place driver in the championship, Eduardo Mortara, starting 11th. Ahead of them, things were looking good for Jaguar, who were in the hunt for both titles. Mitch Evans was third on the grid and the favourite to wrap up the championship.
Van Dorn on pole, Rowland alongside him, all 5 lights are on. We go green in Berlin, and Evans doesn't move, and he's been hit. Mitch Evans has been hit by Eduardo Mortara. 2 title contenders out instantly, and suddenly Nick de Vries and Jake Dennis are looking in the box seats. You could not have predicted it.
But that was just the beginning of the drama.
Jake Dennis has lost it, and Dennis has crashed out. What on earth is going on in this title decider?
Is the car not moving?
Mate, I've just destroyed the car.
With 3 of his biggest rivals out of the race, Nick de Vries had the World Championship in his sights. But it wasn't going to be easy.
And now they're 3 wide, coming towards turn 3, and this is the championship leader, and there's contact! The 2 Mercedes almost wiped out together. De Vries is on the marbles. He's now back behind the Porsches.
I feel like I'm a little bit of a target at the moment.
And he sent it! Oh my goodness me! Nick de Vries put into the wall by Pascal Wehrlein.
De Vries has got to remember the big pictures, winning the championship. He put himself in a bad position there.
The Dutchman regained his composure and crossed the line in 8th place, enough to secure him the title. Into the Gen 3 era and round 7 of Season 9. Sebastian Buemi claimed pole position and held the lead for the majority of the race, but he had 2 Jaguars on his tail. Mitch Evans pounced first, easing past his teammate into second.
Evans is through! The Jaguars switch places!
He then set his sights on Buemi.
We're on board with Bird! Evans sends it!
Evans has taken 2 cars in 3 corners.
Next, it was Bird's turn.
And he's going round the outside and got it done.
But
Will he
can
be
he
able
get
to
it stopped? Kind of! Buemi's coming back at him! It was a huge send from Bird to the outside, and he's done it! Mitch Evans, victory in Berlin! A 1-2 for Jaguar! Gunter gets third of the line!
Come on, and that's a Jaguar 1-2 in Berlin! Yes! Come on!
Jag are back! Jag are back!
It's their first 1-2. They've been close at the last one, didn't quite make it, and now they're joining the 1-2 club.
So this morning we kicked off with FP3, which was another busy session here in Berlin. And unfortunately for Lola Yamaha, they've got a lot of work to do on their car because Lucas de Grassi, well, effectively, he locks up. and went into the wall. And there is so much damage done to that car, Andre. What happened?
Yeah, they need to change chassis. I don't think they will be ready on time for qualifying, that's for sure. But yeah, I think he was behind his teammate, and I don't know if his teammate was on a slower lap, but he was focusing on the apex, and he missed the braking point basically. And then it just shows how little grip there is. As soon as you outbrake yourself, there's no point of return. The wheel locks up and just you don't decelerate, and yeah, the wall was far, but with the speed he hit it quite hard, and with the angle he hit the wall, it also damaged the monocoque, so he will have to start from the pit lane, I guess.
And that is the one, you know, really challenging part of Formula E. When you have practice, qualifying and race all on the same day, there isn't a margin for error to make that mistake. I mean, you can see the car. They've been working on that car for an hour already, and that's still the state of it.
Yeah, I mean, that is the nature of the way these race weekends, especially the double headers, unfold, with how quick it is between practice, qualifying and the race, that if you make that mistake in practice like Lucas made this morning, it's costly, because now he's not going to be able to get out in qualifying very likely. He's going to have to start from the pit lane. He's got a huge amount of damage and work for the engineers and mechanics to sort out. So it's going to be a long, long day for Lucas, and he'll be just kicking himself for making that mistake. But the visibility was tricky, and it was just one of those unfortunate things where a shallow line and outbreaking himself, it's been costly.
I mean, I think Mitch Evans was saying post the session that there was still quite a lot of standing water on the track, which again just adds to another challenge.
Yeah, I think they know the conditions a bit from yesterday. It's wet, but less than yesterday, and they know what to expect. But you know, everyone is pushing the limit a bit further. They learned from yesterday. It's quite an easy track, let's say, to tackle, because there are no hidden corners. It's flat. It's not like a narrow city track, so everyone gets closer to the limit, and that extra little braking a bit later can create a mistake.
Now, yesterday, Mitch Evans took his 14th career win, which means he's now joint with the most wins in Formula E as Sebastian Buemi. Sebastian Buemi has topped the timings in FP3. So, you know, it's a positive sign in the Envision garage.
Yeah, I think it's a real turnaround in form. Obviously, they were in the points yesterday with Sebastian Buemi, so it was, you know, a decent result. But they're a team Envision which not too long ago, they were winning teams championships, and they were really in the fight week in, week out. And this season hasn't quite been that. So if they've got the opportunity with a strong package seemingly today in the car in the right window in FP3, they need to capitalise on it for me. They need to be the ones picking up the big points today.
I mean, we could potentially have a dry qualifying. If you look that way, we've got blue skies. Let's ignore that view. Who do you think is going to be in the mix? You know, prediction for pole position?
Prediction for pole position. I do think practice yesterday, what we didn't get, was quite critical for how it shaped qualifying. I think the learnings they had from the race yesterday and from practice means that we could see a similar order.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for Eduardo Mortara. I think he's been in the mix. He was on the podium yesterday. I just think he's quite consistent, and today could be his day.
Yeah, I mean, he's had 3 poles in the past here, so definitely one to watch there.
Impossible to say for me. If you see, they're all really good drivers, and they've been some performing super well on a rainy day and another one not so good. So I don't know. I have to wait for qualifying.
You can't sit on the fence, Andre.
Quickly.
Buemi, come on,
right,
Buemi.
we've got a qualifying session on. Right, okay, there we are. Buemi or Mortara on pole position. Or could Oliver Rowland make it a 4th pole position this season just when he needs it? Let's go to Alan Manish and Tom Brooks in commentary.
Well, a very good morning. Welcome along to round 14 of the 2025 ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. We're in Berlin for the second of our double-header races, and what a race we had 24 hours ago. The upshot is it was Mitch Evans who started on pole position, and it was Mitch Evans who took the checkered flag in first place for the first time since Sao Paulo 2024, incidentally scoring his first points of the calendar year in 2025 as well. However, it's completely turned on its head 24 hours later. Free practice 3 was a dramatic affair. We had a red flag for Acosta losing a wheel, but crucially at the end of the session, we lost Lucas Di Grassi in the low Yamaha Apt. He careered into the barrier down at turn 2. The upshot is he is not in qualifying here this morning. There is a big repair job going on, and there's even a doubt for the race because the team have got to change the monocoque on that car. Green light is on. Group A qualifying is underway. A 12-minute session with 11 drivers going out onto the track. The top 4 at the end of this session will go through and into the quarter-final duels. Alan McNish, really interesting weekend that we've had here so far. What do you reckon we're going to be expecting as we head into qualifying today?
More of the same. More very interesting weekend. Obviously very affected by the weather. Normally here in Berlin this time of year it's super hot and difficult for the tyres on the circuit. However, we've got a very, very different weather condition and people finding it that it works for them. Oliver Rowland.
So the scenario will be 1 to go out and 5 from the first push lap.
So good to hear there from Oliver Rowland saying go out and then sort of third push lap is what he's expecting. So just a little bit of housekeeping about the drivers that are out in this group. You've got the 2 Nissans, so Oliver Rowland and Norman Natto's replacement Sergio Sette Camara is out. So you've got the 2 DS Penske's, Max Günther and Jean-Eric Vergne. The 2 Maseratis as well of Jake Hughes and Stoffel van Dorn as well. We should have had the 2 Lola Yamaha Apt, but of course we do not have Lucas de Grassi as his car is still in a state of repair. And as I said, the top 4 drivers will be going through and into those dual stages. Billy, you can see the track. It looks pretty dry in certain points, but there's still a little bit of standing water on the racing line.
Yeah, just being in that pit lane there, just at the top of the show, just before we've got our qualifying session now. We had rain, we had sun, we had rain. It's on and off the conditions out there at the minute, so it makes things even trickier for the drivers because normally in the qualifying, the fast laps come towards the end, but if the weather comes in, if that rain comes, they might need to set bankers at the early parts of this session.
To be honest, I think in these conditions you always try to get something on the board because you just never know. And if you are then able to be quick as the circuit's evolving, then you automatically benefit from it. This is a time where, like yesterday, I think we will see all the cars out for the total duration of the session. I can't imagine many people thinking about coming in for a pit stop.
Yeah, that's the risk, isn't it, as well? Look at the sliding there for Rowland as he goes through the left-handed kink, turn 5. Not really a corner in the dry, but in the wet, it certainly becomes one with the standing water that's on the racing line. You can see him fighting for traction here on the exit of turn 7, just trying to get the power down. Just to remind you, of course, in the group stages, we're in 2-wheel drive and 300 kilowatts. When we go into the duels, we go to all-wheel drive and 350 kilowatts.
Yeah, this middle sector for me, in the qualifying session we had yesterday, it was actually what separated the likes of Mitch Evans from the rest of Group A. He had about half-second advantage in that part of the lap alone. So getting the traction right in 300 kilowatts, getting that pace down onto the circuit, not sliding around as we see Oliver Rowland come to the finish line. I thought we were going to have a bit of flashbacks there to the 2 Porsches. It got pretty close there over the line.
Yeah, so you got Rowland there and then Jake Dennis on the right-hand side. They're squabbling for track position here as they come down into turn 2, into Sky Master Corner. They're very keen to set as quick a lap time as they possibly can in these early stages of the session due to the weather, and also, of course, this being a street-style circuit, due to the risk of a yellow flag, a red flag could compromise your run at the end of the race if the rain doesn't come down.
Well, I think the fact we've got different to yesterday. Yesterday, the grid was made up of the best of the duels. So now we're in a position where actually the top 4 will go forward to the duels.
Yep.
And so it's a bit more of a traditional sort of qualifying. So right now you're looking at the top 4 as opposed to necessarily their total position.
Absolutely. Drivers that did pretty well in the wet conditions in the group stages of qualifying, which determined the grid yesterday. Jake Hughes, he was right up there at the sharp end. Things didn't particularly pan out well for him in the race after he got biffed by Da Costa. You've also got to look for Oliver Rowland. He was pretty handy around this track, has had some podium finishes here, and a victory actually a couple of years ago as well.
Yeah, and just looking at the lap times compared to what we had in qualifying yesterday, where we didn't get the dual stages, they were in a 1:11. That was pole position yesterday. We're already down to a 1:06.5. So the track is clearly a lot drier. But then again, in the fastest 350 kilowatts in practice, where we've had dry conditions, they've been in the 57. So we're still a little way off full dry conditions at the minute.
In terms of that victory, by the way, for Oliver Rowland, it was back in 2020. How time flies for the boy from Barnsley. We go down into turn 1 here. This is Zane Maloney in the Lola Yamaha Apt. New livery on that car for this weekend. They partnered up with Warner Brothers, celebrating the new Superman film's release. It's going to be a Superman effort from the crew down at Lola Yamaha Apt to get De Grassi's car repaired in time for the race this afternoon.
It's a huge shunt, wasn't it? It was a big incident, just outbraking himself ever so slightly and actually ending up on a shallow line to get out of the spray that was coming off the back of Zane Maloney's car. It just sort of compounded that effect because he was on that shallow line, he outbraked himself, and then at that point he was heading straight for the wall rather than a little bit further around the corner where there's more runoff area. So a real shame and a lot of work for the team to do there at Loader Yamaha out.
I don't think they're going to recover from that very easily, because when you're on the back foot in one of these race weekends, it's very, very difficult to get back into the system, because he's going to start from last on the grid as well.
Time's starting to count down now then here as drivers getting a bit more acquainted with the circuit. Nowhere near the dry times that we saw on Friday afternoon. Tictum down in 9th position at the moment. Van Dorn currently quickest ahead of the two DS Penske's of Gunther and Verne, and Hughes bookending it as well. So Stellantis powered 1, 2, 3 and 4. What about Tictum? Can he improve? He does. Only P5 for now with 6 minutes remaining.
Every single lap these drivers are improving at the minute, aren't they, Alan? So it does kind of feel like one of those sessions where potentially...
Okay to push again. Okay to push again.
Does feel like one of those sessions where potentially the last one over the line in this session, if we get this continuous rate of improvement, could be on pole position here. So a bit of strategy with a team to find the right position on the track is going to be super important.
I think as well you're in a position now where some of the, we saw the big gaps in the sessions yesterday and also this morning actually, but I think that's going to tighten up, because if you look at it right now, the top 4 are covered by 0.2 of a second.
Yeah, Taylor Barnard, 10th place for him on the grid yesterday, just pops himself up into 3rd quickest. Hughes also making some improvements, seems to go quite well around here in that Maserati. As we look at Tictum, he's gone personal best in Sector 1, fastest overall, though, in Sector 2. So that's a handy bit of driving there from the Briton, right up against the wall on the exit of the final corner. Comes to the timing line. Does he go fastest overall? He does, by nearly 0.3 of a second.
I'm interested to see, Tom, what the teams do with their strategy in qualifying, because yesterday, when it was full wet weather conditions, we just saw continuous improvement and just lap on lap, pushing. But where it's getting a bit drier now, you don't want to overcook these tyres, Alan.
Yeah, I think they're going to do, sort of 2 push laps and then a cool lap to try and cool the tyre down and go again. But they've got to be very careful on that cool lap. They don't get then shuffled back to your point to ensure that they get the last lap, Dennis.
That's purple turn 6. Just keep it up.
So words of encouragement from Sean McGill, race engineer there for Jake Dennis, as he comes across the timing line, goes to the top of the order by 10th of a second. What about Oliver Rowland? Hasn't really had much of a starring role in this set. He's on a build lap at the moment, isn't he? So starting on a push lap, but look at the rear instability even down into that first corner. Properly gives you an idea of how bumpy it is on this circuit. It's concrete and it's made up of different joins, and you can see how much the car was pattering going into the braking zone.
Yeah, but the car looks a bit loose on entry. Floated it in there, okay, that's a little bit Oliver Rowland style, but it doesn't look like it's hooked up underneath him.
Tictum up to P3 as well, so good lap time there for Tictum. Rear instability there for Rowland as he tries to get the car rotated down into the hairpin. Misses the first apex, that's okay because you can cut it back for the second one. Who's that that's just up the road from Rowland? It's the 27, so that's Jake Dennis, isn't it, in the Andretti, that's not too far ahead of him. Dennis at the moment is on an okay lap, but he's on a sort of build lap at the moment. We just had a note on the timing screen, Ducati under investigation for not setting a time in the first 6 minutes, given the car has got no wheels on the wagon and is a fair old state of repair. That's no surprise at all. As we look at Gunther then coming up into P3. Now, what about Oliver Rowland? It's been a bit of a messy lap for him so far, but he goes up to 4th quickest. Still 0.3 of a second away, though. And given the rate of improvement we're seeing, I think you're exactly right here, Billy. We're going to see last drivers across the line potentially being the quickest.
And the times are definitely coming down. We're into the 1:02s now. And bearing in mind, in 300 kilowatts, I believe the 58s, high 58s has been the fastest we've seen in this power mode. So we are now only about 3 seconds away from where they were in FP1.
Yeah, but the thing is, this man, Oliver Rowland's still stuck down there in 6th, so if it finishes like this, if he doesn't pull a little bit more out of the bag, then he's not going to make it through to the dual stages.
Just to remind you, in terms of the Drivers' Championship, to secure that today, he needs to outscore his rivals by 8 points. He's got a 50-point advantage, needs to be at least 58 in front at the end of this weekend. And if he gets pole position here today, that's an extra 3 points, so only 5 going into the race. But at the moment, it's looking like a bit of a tall order. He's personal best in these sectors, but he's not setting the timing screens alight. Just to remind you as well, he does have that 5-place grid penalty after the incident with Stoffel Van Dorn yesterday. Goes up to P2 with 2.5 minutes left.
It's important to note, though, Tom, that he doesn't have to be the fastest in group qualifying, because we're likely to get the duels today. As long as he makes it through, he's still in contention for that pole position, and obviously they can still build on that performance.
And just to remind you as well, even if he does get pole position, he'll still get those points, and he'll still get the Julius Baer pole position trophy, even though he won't line up on pole position. So he still gets the award and the accolades for it, but he'll line up at best 6th on the grid here today. Barnard improves up to 2nd quickest.
Yeah, but I've got to be honest with you, he's right on the bubble here because it's a 2.6, 2.6, 2.6, 2.6, 4 drivers on exactly the same 10th, so he could be quite easily 7th or 8th.
Dan Ticktum's crossed the line there with 2 minutes on the clock, so he'll have to take this as a call-up and he'll get one more go at it.
What about Jake Hughes then? 6th wickets for him at the moment and lined up pretty well on the grid yesterday. P4, as I said earlier on, didn't go well for him in the race. Didn't go well at all for Maserati, actually. Both of their drivers coming into bother. Look at the traffic, though, as they're all trying to fight for track position. Hughes is on a quick lap here, but he's going to have to be careful to not get balked behind any of these drivers. That's a bit scrappy there. So it's a camera just having to take evasive action down into the last trio of corners. And I wonder if the stewards might be having a look at that one.
Yeah, it's right on the limit, but he lost the momentum through as he drops himself up into 2nd, but I'm not sure that's going to be able to be good enough, but he's got one more lap, he can do it.
Yeah, these drivers that are crossing the line now, they are now in the window where they could potentially have 2 laps as we have a yellow flag that's come out.
Yeah, down
it's
at
55.
turn 2. Yes, Jake Hughes has come across, so that anyone that's just started their final 5 laps might be coming to a hindrance to that one. Roland should be okay because... Oh, no! That's the problem, isn't it? When you get a yellow flag out, you get a red flag out at the end of the session, and that has deleted Oliver Roland from it as Jake Hughes has found the barrier down at turn 2. So Group A qualifying will come to an end. It will be Van Dorn that's through. Hughes will be through as well, but I presume he won't be going into the duels given the car is not looking particularly brilliant at all there. Barnard will go through as well as Ticktum, so that might be a saving grace here for Jake Hughes because even though he's 2nd, if he gets demoted out of the duels because his car can't continue, that would then promote Roland up into them.
Yeah, this is an unfortunate... It's the same corner as we saw Lucas de Grassi end up in the water, although it looks a little bit further around the corner than Lucas's one from this morning.
Oh man, I had nothing, no brakes, just...
Did you manage to slow down a bit for the contact or not?
No.
Well, we saw Lucas de Grassi finding the wall at the end of free practice 3 this morning, and Jake Hughes has done the same. We'll have to get another look at the incident there, but it sounds like it was driver error. In terms of drivers that were on improvements on that lap, Roland was looking good in the first sector, Gunter was looking handy. Jake Dennis, though, is the big loser out of that because he was quickest overall in sector 1. Let's see what happened, though, to Hughes. He's going to come in right of your shots. He glances the barrier once, and then he glances it and hits it a bit firmer a 2nd time.
Yeah, it's a double apex corner down into turn 1 and 2. So you can see he goes in and he's already a passenger from very early on in the corner there. As soon as he's hit the brakes, it has just not slowed down, whether he's missed his braking point or if there's been some sort of issue on the car. But we can see from the onboard here now, Alan.
Let's have a listen.
He's just not...
Just sound like he's
slowed down and
into
turned the steering wheel, yeah. But I think the thing now for the team is that chassis damaged? We saw Lucas de Grassi's accident, kind of similar, to be honest with you, wheel coming back into the monocoque. They had to change the chassis, and so that will be the first question on the team's mind.
Yeah, de Grassi's chassis was bent like a banana.
That's no link.
Who was Piff? Anyone in front that caused the red flag?
No. Yes. Yes.
The lap deleted now.
You saved my heart. Yep. You should be
so, exactly as we said, yeah, Roland will scrape through into the dual stages then. He should buy a lottery ticket after that one because that is an incredible amount of fortune there for the Briton, and it means that Hughes, as he quite rightly said, will have his lap time deleted following that red flag. The car can't continue into the dual stages as a result of the damage.
Make sure you are on that like a car bonnet.
Already on it, mate.
So, Group A qualifying does come to an end then. Stoffel Van Dorn will make it through. Jake Hughes was 2nd quickest, but caused the red flag, so his lap time will be deleted. That means we'll see Taylor Barnard, Dan Ticktum, and Oliver Roland going through from Group A qualifying. The big losers in all of that, Max Gunter didn't manage to get a final lap time in. Jake Dennis was on an absolute flyer prior to that red flag as well.
and Jake Hughes. I think he was the huge loser out of this one. Second, but he's not going to be able to go any further than the question mark now whether he can actually even make the race.
He's definitely had raw speed as well this weekend, because he lined up fourth on the grid yesterday. Although the race did not go his way, he was involved in contact with Antonio Felix da Costa, and there we get the confirmation from the FIA about how he's under investigation because of causing this red flag, and how he, as a result, will lose his fastest lap time, which will promote Oliver Rowland. But the results from here today puts pressure in Group B on the likes of Pascal Wehrlein, because you've got Oliver Rowland, championship leader, he's through. You also have Taylor Barnard third in the championship, he's through to the duels too.
Just a notice has come up on our timing screen. Incident between Byrne and Van Dorn has been noted. We didn't see what that was, but Van Dorn was the quickest driver at the end of Group A. Confirmation there, by the way, that qualifying Group A session will not restart. There's only 54 seconds left, so it would be pretty academic even if it had done. And Max Günther will be jumping out of that car, a very disappointed driver, I'm afraid to say. Home event for Günther here, and unfortunately it is not an appearance into the duels on Sunday.
For whatever reason, he doesn't look keen to get out of the car. You see drivers normally when they've had a difficult session, when he's not made it through, they want to get out of the car quickly, but he's just staying put for the minute.
Well, we saw the incident under investigation between Van Dorn and Verne, so is he hoping that there's maybe something coming the way of Van Dorn staying in the car in the hope that he then gets bumped up into the duels? Yeah,
potentially, and now Jake Hughes' lap time has been removed, so he drops down to 6th. He loses his fastest lap, so now Oliver Rowland is confirmed to be through on our timing screens.
Yeah, good news there for Oliver Rowland. He lived to fight another day. And you can see by the body language there that he knows how lucky he was after that qualifying session. Confirmation there that Hughes' lap time will be deleted for causing that red flag. As Jean-Eric Verne walks down the pit lane, he will not be progressing forwards from this session, unfortunately. Thumbs down then for Jean-Eric Verne at the end of Group A qualifying. Let's get the idea of how it all worked out then. So Stoffel Van Dorn progresses forwards for Maserati MSG. Taylor Barnard, Dan Ticktum and Oliver Rowland making a trio of Britons all through as well. Jake Hughes caused a red flag, had his lap time deleted, and that means that he will go no further. His car was in the barrier, so he wasn't going to anyway. Jake Dennis was on a bit of a flyer at the end of that one, but sadly was not able to complete the lap, so he ends up 8th quickest ahead of Jean-Eric Verne, Sergio Sette Canberra, and of course no lap time there for Lucas de Grassi in the lowly Yamaha Apt. He was in the wall at the end of free practice 3 this morning, and as such was not able to get out in the session due to the car being repaired. Well, thankfully, the rain seems to be staying away, and the drivers that are going out in Group B will be hoping for more of the same. We'll see Pascal Wehrlein and Antonio Felix da Costa, the two Tag Heuer Porsches. 2 Jags in there as well, Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans. You've got Edo Mortara, who's been on pole position here on 3 previous occasions. Sam Bird, Robin Fright, Sebastian Buemi, David Beckman, as well as Felipe Drugovic. So, good opportunity for some drivers to maybe have a look at the track conditions when the cars were out on for Group A a few moments ago and use it to their advantage.
Yeah, obviously the second group has got that advantage in changing conditions, that they can see what works and what's not. Oliver Rowland, as we see a nice slow-mo of him coming through turns 3 and 4 here, and so it's without doubt an advantage in this situation to be in Group B, but you also know that everybody else is, and so it's going to be really close.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, whilst we're waiting for Group B to get underway, let's get down to Saunders, who's in the pit lane. He's catching up with a man who was unlucky to miss out on a place in the duels, Jake Dennis.
Jake Dennis, red flag at the end of that session with impeding people from doing that final lap. Do you think you have the pace to get into the duels today without that?
Easy. We were purple set to 1 on that final lap from everyone, so had the car. I think I was 6 tenths up in 4 corners, so yeah, which is easily enough for the duels. But it's what it is. Yeah, glad Jake's all right with a big crash. So yeah, those sessions are always like push, call, push, and if you call down on the red flag, which is obviously what happened to us, you're obviously at the back, but it's what it is. We move on. It's not my year. I've been so unlucky on every department this year, and just want to get to London already, to be honest.
Thanks, Jake.
Disappointed Dennis then at the end of Group A qualifying. On board here with Jake Hughes coming down to the first corner. This is what brought out the red flag. So he goes in, glances the barrier once, seems to save it, and then just runs out of room. I think the steering arm may have already been damaged by that point, and a secondary impact, a heavier one, with the barrier brought out the red flag and saw the 30-year-old from Solihull removed from the dual stages, despite having set a quick enough lap time to do so.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know the cause of that incident, whether it was just purely outbraking yourself, because that was what the cause of Lucas de Grassi's incident was this morning, but that was due to a lack of visibility as well, as we listened to Jake communicating with his engineer, Pierre.
Because maybe then it was too dry in the regulation.
The one thing, it looked very similar to Lucas, except that it was much earlier because he had that initial glancing blow, which took some of the energy out of it. So the actual impact when he did stop was actually significantly less than de Grassi. But it looks to be super narrow, the line into there. If you're slightly wide, it's just no grip. Whereas if you're on the line, you look as if you've got something you can work with.
I'm trying to remember the last time we saw Hughes having a crash in qualifying. I seem to recall he had an incident in Rome a couple of years ago in Gen 3. But other than that, he's seldom a driver that you see ending in the wall.
Yeah, normally he's a very strong qualifier. Obviously there he was through into the duels until that incident happened, and he obviously brought the red flag out. But even losing his best lap in a session where there was constant improvement, it still put him 6th in that session. So the pace in that Maserati team definitely looks strong.
Yeah, but the difference between 4th and 7th, so Roland and Zane Maloney, was only 0.04 of a second. It is absolutely
massive
nothing.
Margins out there, massive.
Yeah, I know, you always worked in thousandths of a second there,
thousands, mate.
But no, it's nip and tuck, whether you're in the duels or you're not. Whether you're going through it, it's so tight.
Control again. Session will start at 11:46 local time. Qualifying Group B, 11:46.
So 5 minutes to go and we'll get qualifying Group B underway. Slight delay due to the repairs that have to be made to the Tech Pro barrier down at the first corner. No surprise there at all. Not the first time, again, that we've seen some incidents there. This is Antonio Pinto da Costa. He brought out the red flag inadvertently in FP3 this morning as well. His wheel came off the car down at turns 9 and 10 in a rather bizarre incident. He was hoping to get out in the latter stage of the session, which he did so, and then the red flag came out again when de Grassi biffed it into the wall.
I guess one saving grace for him is the fact that conditions look a lot drier, so the running he didn't get in practice as a result of that isn't so influential over the result, because they are different conditions that he'll have to adapt to now.
Well, Saunders is with Jake Hughes, the man who brought out the red flag at the end of Group A. Let's catch up with the Briton and see what he has to say.
Jake Hughes, never nice to see something like that at the end of a session. First of all, good to see you back in the garage and okay. What can you tell us?
I just lost the brakes. We had like an alarm more in the middle of the session a few laps before that didn't seem anything to worry about at the time. And then as I exited the last corner, I had an urgent alarm. Over the radio, we said we should finish the lap and then take margin into turn 1. But unfortunately, as soon as I crossed the line, touched the brake pedal, it just went to the floor. So basically, I didn't have any retardation. It was just steering and hopefully trying to hit the wall at a good angle.
Any idea of the damage so far? Chance to get out for the race?
I didn't stop by to have a good look at it after I jumped out of the car, to be honest. Hopefully the first impact has took some speed, a little bit speed out of it. I mean, for sure the car's damaged, so it needs fixing. But I think as long as there's no chassis damage, we should be okay.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
Well, good to hear that Jake is okay after that one, but obviously disappointed. Technical problem then clearly causing that crash for the Briton, and unfortunately means he is out of qualifying after Group A.
And fresh tyres there for Sam Bird, and he's preparing to go out. Sam's had a difficult year. Even although he's got 6 pole positions in his career, it's certainly not been lately, as we see. Sam Bird fan?
Yeah, best position in qualifying this year has been 7th. That was back in Jeddah, actually, all the way in February. Ever since then, he's only had 1 top 10 appearance in Tokyo. Qualifying hasn't particularly been the British driver's forte. We understand that he's going to be off to pastures new for next year. Where that will be, what paddock it will be in, we're not 100% sure, but it's a big shame to lose Sam from the championship. He's been a big part of this ever since the very beginning, and we hope that he has all the very success with whatever he does in the future, and hopefully go out on a high and bring Neil McLaren out on a high as well, because of course that team will be disappearing from Formula E at the end of season 11 as well.
I think as well you need to give Sam some credit for the role he's played in developing and helping his teammate Taylor Barnard, a rookie to the championship this season. It's not easy. There's a lot to learn in this championship that's very specific to Formula E, and you look at how Taylor Barnard has just grasped this championship and got up to speed so quickly. You would think that Sam has been quite influential in terms of helping him get up to speed for the team.
Yeah, without doubt, he's got a lot of experience, and he's also someone that will sort of give that across. I'm sure, though, you know, from Sam's point of view, you prefer to be in front of Taylor. That's the realities of life.
That is being a racing driver, isn't it?
Exactly that. However, this man has definitely been one of the stars of the season. Someone that we saw here in Berlin last year when he was actually substituting and became the absolute fastest substitute, getting points on his actual first weekend.
Yeah, first full weekend, wasn't it? Because he jumped in the car the weekend before in Monaco, but, you know, yeah, didn't have a chance to do all of the practice sessions and so on. But as you quite rightly say, Alan, it was a brilliant full weekend debut for Taylor Barnard this time last year. And, again, strong performances for him yesterday after a challenging race for a lot of the drivers. As we look at Oliver Rowland, just debriefing after that session.
You kind of feel for Oliver Rowland, don't you? Because everywhere he goes this weekend, the cameras are right on his back because he's in the fight for the championship.
I'm sorry, leading the World Championship by 50 points, and you kind of feel sorry for him.
But we talk about
I don't think there's anybody else on the grid that feels too sorry for him.
No one on the grid, the other drivers, but from a media point of view, the attention and the pressure that's on him this weekend to wrap it up with something that we don't see in Formula E normally, it always goes down to the wire. So just when he thinks he's got a break and he's made it through to the duels, it gets busy again for him.
Right, over to Group B qualifying then, as the green light is on at the end of pit lane, and 12 more drivers filter out, sorry, 11 more drivers filter out for the 12-minute session onto the circuit. So, Pascal Wehrlein, Antonio Felix da Costa for Tag Heuer Porsche. You've got the two Envisions in this one of Freund and Buemi, the two Jaguars of Cassidy, and yesterday's race winner Mitch Evans. You've got Felipe Drugovich in there as well, the substitute for Nick de Vries here this weekend. And the track continuing to dry, those wet spots getting smaller and smaller as time continues on, which is great news for the drivers out on track, and hopefully means that the lap times will continue to fall in the same direction as well.
Yeah, the two Envisions are the last two cars to go out, Robin Freins and now Sebastian Buemi, so everybody's out onto circuit. They're looking clearly to be dropped off the back and to have a clean run without all this traffic sort of build up and the fighting for position, so that they can start their lap focusing and ensuring the tyres and the brakes are at optimum temperatures.
So it's interesting here going out of turn 6 in 7 in towards turn 9 there, because that line looks quite wide actually going into the first hairpin, and it really narrows down, doesn't it, how dry it is going into the next hairpin.
That's the thing. I think a lot of it is making sure that you actually keep out of the little bits of puddle and the bits of damp as opposed to the optimum line.
It's looking pretty dry.
Good news there for Mitch Evans, saying that the circuit is looking pretty dry. Good news for the rest of the drivers as well. Still those dark clouds looming overhead as well. Hopefully that is the last of the rain that we've seen this weekend. I think everybody in the paddock would be glad of that, given we haven't had any rain-free weekend since before Monaco.
Yeah, a little while ago. Yeah. But certainly for Mitch Evans, who we heard there, pretty dry, but he was pretty stellar in the rain, so I'm quite sure that he'd be happy if it was also a little bit of rain.
So Antonio is willing to push next lap, so let him by if you don't want to. So if
so discussions ongoing about the formation of the two Tag Heuer Porsches. We'll see how that one works out. Da Costa is on a push lap initially then, so he's decided to go and get the lap time in early doors, hoping that no red flags or yellow flags come out. He's actually, you can see, just warming the tyres here, isn't he? Just coming onto this back straight here, so not pushing to the same intensity as we have seen.
But the two Jaguars also have done a quick lap straight out, a 61.3.
Yes, faster than what we saw in Group A already. They were in the high 1-minute ones, and yeah, Nick Cassidy is currently leading away with a 1-minute 1.3. So definitely the track has continued to dry, and at the minute, obviously that would, if we had the qualifying we had yesterday, it would be critical because obviously that affected pole position. But with the duels today, it means we've got points on offer for pole position and another stage to come after Group B is finished.
Alan, do you think we're going to see what we saw in Group A, drivers staying out for the entirety of the session?
I think you probably will, because you know, it is much drier.
Gap 2 behind is currently 4 seconds to Mortara. Just keep bringing your tires in.
But I think they'll have maybe a separation where some would come in, for example, Jaguar, who went straight out, put a lot of energy into the tire, did a lap time, and then you've got Pascal Wehrlein, who's actually doing build laps to bring things up more gently. So slightly different concepts there.
Yeah, I think Wehrlein was on a new set of tyres, so maybe just bedding those in for a couple of laps, taking the sort of sheen off of it, really, and making sure they're in the right operating window. Down into 3 and 4 then for Mitch Evans. There is James Barclay, a man who was absolutely delighted yesterday to take the team's second win of 2025, their third overall in season 11. Robin Freins on the other side was bitterly disappointed, just catches a bit of the wet part of the circuit coming into the trio of final corners there.
Yeah, they just lost a little bit of entry there. You can see that it still is pretty tricky, even though it's drier than it was in the first section, as now we're Sebastian Buemi crossing the line. Robin Freins is up to 3rd. Buemi slots in 4th.
Just looking at the lap times we've got, Tom, I'm comparing this to FP1 because that was the last full dry session. And the only drivers that didn't use 350 kilowatts, the fastest of them, Mitch Evans, on a 59.7. So in the same power mode that we've got right now, where they're currently down to a 1 minute 0.3, seems like, compared to FP1, the lap times are going to be very close to where we were there.
Yeah, I wonder how much of an improvement the drivers will be able to make in the closing stages. We're into the 59s now, first of all, with Antonio Felix da Costa at 59.8, so right on cue. He is right on the pace, so that's good news there for da Costa. Bird also making an improvement, not quite breaking the 1 minute barrier. Felipe Drugovich, though, on an absolute flyer. His first race in a single-seater car since 2022, as Drugovich goes over the line and goes into 4th position. Mortara's improved up to 2nd place, just in front of him there as well. So the two Mahindras looking pretty handy. They were on pole position last year here with Eder Mortara, and Mortara was on the podium here yesterday as well. So that car is looking pretty good around the Tempelhof track.
Got an Envision 1-2 now. Robin Freins and Sebastian Buemi have gone to the top of the timing sheets.
59.7, 59.8, 59.8, 59.9 for the top 4, super tight. But this is the first real attack lap by Pascal Wehrlein. He's currently sitting down in 11th because he's been doing these build preparation laps as opposed to going out and nailing it straight away.
Both the Jags in the pit lane, Evans and Cassidy at the moment. What do you think that's all about, Billy?
Maybe just the strategy for the session. We've got 6 minutes still on the clock, so they might just be biding their time, thinking that there will be some track evolution so that they've got the tyres at the freshest point for when the track's at its fastest. So Sam Bird goes fastest now. Yeah, good lap time there from Sam Bird. The risk, of course, with that is exactly what we saw in Group A. You go out and try and set a quick lap time, and then you get balked with a red flag. Cassidy now back out on track. Muller has come into the box there for Andretti. Wehrlein makes an improvement, but it's only enough for 6th quickest as the sun finally shines over this circuit for the first time this weekend.
Yeah, 6th and 7th for the two Porsches, not quite what they would like in that first attack run.
Well, Antonio Felix da Costa, currently the quicker of the two Tag Heuer Porsches. Wehrlein 50 points adrift of Oliver Rowland in the championship. Needs a strong result here today. The 3 points that you could get for pole position would be critical to keep his championship hopes alive here this afternoon. 58 points is the advantage that Rowland needs to be crowned world champion, just to remind you. Da Costa over the wet part of the track into that triple apex left-hander. All of the lateral load on the outside part of the tyres.
This is a quicker lap by da Costa.
Yeah, he's looking good here, isn't he? As he comes to the timing line, where's he going to go? It's top of the pile by 3/100ths of a second. So da Costa makes a good improvement. The Tag Heuer Porsche now starting to come in to the right window that we were expecting.
Wehrlein's not on an attack lap. He's on a cool lap at this moment in time with 5 minutes to go.
I lose the rear in turn 4 like hell. I can't touch the brake.
That's a change of direction. Turn 3 is a left, and then you go immediately into a right-hand 90-degree turn 4. And then that change of direction, that's where the stability of that Envision isn't quite what Sebastian Buemi wants or needs.
So at the moment, it's da Costa, Mortara, Bird and Freins, the top 4 that have gone through. Freins has gone into the pit lane here quite late on, so he's decided to come in, and as well as his teammate Sebastian Buemi. So maybe they're trying for a sort of Dan Dare last one flying lap at the end of this session.
Yeah, maybe some adjustments to tyre pressures, get them back in the right window with that. As we got Pascal Wehrlein, who's gone fastest of anyone in the first sector. So our Porsche showing their hand now.
Yeah, he's 10.5 up, isn't he, here as well? He's looking pretty good now, a further 2 tenths, nearly 3 tenths up in that second sector. So Wehrlein on an absolute flyer. Bird goes over the line, improves in the final sector, stays third quickest at the moment, but the man of the moment is this driver, Pascal Wehrlein. Reigning world champion is going to come to the timing line. And where does he go? It's the top of the pile by 4 tenths of a second.
Wow.
That's an absolute fortune's worth of time.
On a lap that's less than a minute as well, to have that sort of advantage. That is a huge lap from Pascal Wehrlein, who was also fastest in free practice 1 in dry conditions. So he has looked strong when it's been dry.
That's a punchy lap, but also the circuit will be getting a little bit quicker as well. So the 4 tenths of advantage, I would assume, is going to naturally come down a little bit when everybody does their final laps. On board with Da Costa, his teammate now.
Beckman's just improved as well. He's gone up to P5. Freitz and Buemi now currently out. They were top 2 a few moments ago as Da Costa has a bit of a slip on the rear coming into the left-hander, the Triple Apex final couple of corners. As we come to the timeline then for Da Costa, can it be an improvement? I think it might be just in terms of time. It is, but he stays second quickest for now, just cementing P2. What about Edo Mortara then in the Mahindra? They're starting to now build themselves up for this final attack of the circuit. No one's really lighting the timing screens up in particular at the moment. A few personal best sector times coming in, but nothing that's going purple right now.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a disappointing lap there by Cassidy, as now he's going to sort of back off and then have a final push lap. Evans as well. Now both those guys are, well, Evans just popped himself up into 9th and Cassidy in 10th.
Yeah, but look at the gaps though. It's what, 4 tenths of a second? That's quite a lot of time around a lap as short as this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 4 tenths to the cutoff, but actually to Pascal Wehrlein, it's nearly
9.
a second. It's 9 tenths, so that is a huge margin. But this is that lull period that we saw in Group A right now, where the drivers are setting themselves up for the final laps. But crucially, red flags interrupted Group A. Will it be the same now in Group B?
Just looking at the driver tracker, it's quite congested in the middle part of the lap as well.
Okay, cool down, that's P1, 4 tenths clear. P1, 4 tenths clear, fastest all sectors.
So Wehrlein's done all he needs to do, but just going back to that point, it's quite congested in this middle sector. Everyone's trying to find track position at the moment, and I wonder whether that could compromise some of the drivers on their final flying laps as they're now beginning to build themselves up. So we've got, what, 1 minute and 40 left of this one. So drivers will get 2 bites at the cherry, and it could be a case of the last one to cross the line ends up going quickest of the lot. Da Costa, personal best here in Sector 1 as he comes down into the hairpin, which has caught so many drivers out this weekend.
Yeah, not quite as fast as his teammate in the first part of the lap, missing about a 1.5 in that first sector, but an improvement and still 1 minute 20 on the clock. So he will get potentially another couple of laps here. He'll be close when he crosses the line to see whether he can get 2 push laps or if he'll just make the 1.
Yeah, but it's good for Porsche because they've got 2 drivers in the fight here at this moment in time, thinking about championships, thinking about the manufacturers, thinking about the teams, but also the drivers. It's always better to have 2 in the fight than the 1, which is the situation for Oliver Rowland and Nissan.
He's just going to get the 1 lap to Costa. He's crossed the line now with 56 seconds to go, so this will be his final attempt.
Yeah, needs to pull it out of the bag. What about Felipe Drugovich then, replacing Nick de Vries this weekend? Comes across the line, he'll get 1 more go at it.
So Nico Müller is the first driver that will be able to do 2 laps, and he is down in 10th at this moment in time.
Cassidy's just improved, but it's only enough for 7th fastest. So again, 1 more go at it. What has happened to Jaguar 24 hours after they finished 1st and 5th? They look to be a little bit at sea at the moment. Evans currently slowest of the lot.
Well, they're not quick enough at the moment. That's a simple fact of life. They are not quick enough in the dry. They were super quick in the wet.
Drugovich is under investigation for FPK use. He says that's something to do with the front powertrain there for the Brazilian driver. So hopefully that's not a penalty coming his way, because he was right at the back of the grid yesterday. As Buemi comes across the timing line, the timer counts down. Müller pops himself up to P3 in the Andretti.
And he has 1 more lap available as well.
Let's see what Müller can do then. So it's now Mortara that is on the bubble. Checkered flag is now out at the end of the session. Da Costa has taken it, 2nd fastest. Hasn't made any improvements. What about Sam Bird? He's just 1/100th of a second away. In front of him is Mitch Evans as they come out of the hairpin of turn 7.
Drugovich and Cassidy cross the line, so Cassidy is out.
No improvement there for Nick Cassidy. What a shame for him. He'll have to fight his way through from the lower echelons of the grid. Can Bird make an improvement? Sector 1 wasn't anything to write home about, and he's backed off now, hasn't he? So he knows that the lap time has gone there for Sam Bird. Verline again continuing to fly. Frines has just popped himself up into P3 in the Envision as well. Knocks out Edo Mortara, who's also taken the checkered flag. Verline stays top of the class then. As we look at the rest of the drivers, Evans misses out by 300ths of a second. He won here for round 13 yesterday, and round 14 sees him not progressing into the duels as the final drivers take the checkered flag. Buemi just gets ahead of Drugovic, and that is it. So it's the two Tag Heuer Porsches of Pascal Verline and Antonio Felix da Costa that go through, as well as Robin Freitz and Nico Müller. Evans misses out here, crucially, in Berlin. Mortara also not making the cut. Mahindra will be bitterly disappointed with that, given their pace so far this weekend. Beckman looked pretty good in the sort of mid-stages of that session, but no luck for him. Bird we saw backing off on that final flying lap. Buemi, Drugovic, as we said earlier on, under investigation. But crucially, Cassidy, slowest of the lot, down in 11th place. What's gone wrong for Nick Cassidy?
They went out, they had quite a different strategy to everyone else. They went out, they put a lap in straight away, then they came into the pits.
So that's P1 and Antonio P2. That's now confirmed.
But clear job done by Pascal Verline, but they had a slightly different strategy with Pascal Verline and Porsche. They actually used multiple laps to build up slowly their temperatures, pressures, and preparation for a push lap. And so it worked clearly for Porsche, but it definitely didn't work for Jaguar.
Yeah, I feel like that was a smart run plan there from Porsche to take their time, not to cook those tyres too early on in the session, knowing that the fastest laps were going to come towards the end. Pascal Verline really looked after those tyres in the early laps, plenty of building, and just building that temperature up nice and slowly, not to cook the surface of the tyre and get the car sliding around. And their car, Porsche, definitely looked more stable as a result, potentially, of how they've brought their tyres in. We know how important they are in Formula E.
Yeah, that's very true, but I think we must also just point out that Evans was only 300ths of a second outside of getting through to the duels behind Nico Müller, so it wasn't as if it's a huge amount of difference, but it was just enough.
Well, possibly being set for some more weather coming in as the hoods were going up in the grandstands. The upshot is at the end of Group B, Verline, da Costa, Freitz and Müller are the top 4 drivers that will go through into the quarterfinals to join the top 4 from Group A. Evans misses out, Mortara also in the Mahindra, Beckman, Bird, Buemi, Drugovic and Cassidy from 5th down to 11th will progress no further here in Berlin. They'll be bitterly disappointed with that one. So then we go from the group stages of qualifying over to the duels, and the rain has made a return for about the 50,000th time this weekend. They'll be so disappointed with that, the fans in the grandstands. It just never seems to go away for too long. It's like a British summer's day, this, Billy.
Yeah, it's, I don't know if it's quite 50,000 times, Tom, but also you're kind of not exaggerating by that much, because it has been ridiculous, the weather we've had here this weekend. But how will this spice things up now going into the dual stages of qualifying? If you're Pascal Verline, you're pretty disappointed right now because you had a 3/10 advantage over the rest of the field. You were looking strong there, and he was fastest in FP1 in 350 kilowatts.
Yeah, the rain's been on and off like a knackered bathroom light this weekend, hasn't it, unfortunately. Pascal Verline, though, has managed to take profit of it, given the tricky conditions that they've faced without on track. But there you can see the umbrellas definitely up. The rain returning once more.
I just stuck my head outside and it is raining.
Like a Scottish summer's day, is it?
It's like a Scottish summer's day, winter day, autumn day, spring day, day.
4 seasons in a day. Well, we have to say the two Tag Heuer Porsches working pretty well there, and also Nico Müller confirming the Porsche powertrain looking handy around this track in 4th.
Yeah, without doubt. They've been very strong in that respect, and they've done a good job overall. Nico Müller's been quick, I would say, in most situations, but Pascal Verline has been very strong. He was only in qualifying yesterday, he struggled a little bit. Robin Freins on the front row of the grid yesterday, and he is also going through the duels.
Yeah, we're going to have Barnard versus Ticktum first up in the quarterfinals. Van Dorn will be up against Oliver Rowland as well in quarterfinal 2.
I'm looking forward to quarterfinal 3. Robin Freins, Antonio Felix da Costa.
Yeah, spicy lineup that, isn't it? And then Nico Müller versus Pascal Verline as well at Tag Heuer Porsche. This is the man of the moment, though. 0.3 of a second, the advantage he had at the end of Group B qualifying. Well done there to Pascal Verline, as he now gets himself prepared and ready to go. What goes through your mind at the end of a session like that there, Alan? You've got a nice advantage, but of course, we've got weather coming in now, you've got more power, you've got all-wheel drive. How do you adapt your mindset to it?
You've just got to, every time you go out, though, it's different, because now they go out with 350 kilowatts. So from that perspective, you're in a position where every time you're on circuit, and especially this weekend, they've had to adapt every lap. So I think it's just a case of keeping calm, breathing, and making sure that you're prepared for all of the eventualities as much as you can.
Yeah, so time to debrief there with Pascal Wehrlein. 10 minutes to go until the quarterfinals will get underway here in Berlin. It'll be Ticktum up first of all with Taylor Barnard, Roland and Van Dorn, Freitz and Da Costa, Nico Müller versus Pascal Wehrlein as well. Let's see how they get on as we get ready for the duels.
So a very interesting qualifying session there. I mean, by luck, Oliver Rowland has managed to get through to the duels. So obviously, because Jake Hughes had that massive moment, he didn't actually get to do his fastest lap of the session. So he could have got through anyway.
Yeah, it's quite sad for Jake Hughes. He was, I think, in P2 and got his lap deleted. This is the rule, but, you know, they tried to make that rule so you don't, you know, put a good lap time and then crash and then you're safe to go into the duels. But a bit unlucky for him because it was a technical issue. I don't think the car decelerated at all. So yeah, it feels a bit sad. I feel a bit sad for him. He deserved that. He was doing well. But yeah, Oliver Rowland is happy. He's in the duel. He can duels. He can recover. But yeah, it was a relatively big impact. Not too big, but yeah, I don't know what happened with the systems of his car. Just clearly not his fault there. So yeah. Happens sometimes, but unfortunately for him.
And then an incredibly quick lap from both the Porsche drivers there. Pascal Wehrlein 0.3 up on his teammate Antonio Felix Costa. So he is undoubtedly going to be one to watch in the dual stages.
He will be for sure. I think the track was changing a lot in Group B in that second session. They seemed to have a different strategy in terms of they were building the tyre temperature quite slowly at the start. We saw Jaguar drivers spending quite a lot of time in the pits at the beginning as well, and I think they were trying to make some setup changes because they were obviously a lot stronger in the wet and then both missing out going forwards to today into the dual stages. But in terms of the championship fight, we've got all of our top contenders going through into the duels.
Oliver Rowland will be going up against Stoffel Van Dorn in the duels. Now, Stoffel has been in the duels but has only qualified P5. That's been his highest, so he's never actually won the quarterfinal stages. So is Oliver Rowland, how hard is he going to push?
Let's see. I mean, both will push very hard. You know, that's the nature of the sport. There's only going to be an outlap to recognize a bit the track conditions and see where to brake and what to do. Also, the driver's been talking a bit about differences in tires, which is a bit more the case when it's wet. So that could play a role also in the performance. So let's see who gets the upper hand. But yeah, Oliver Rowland's quite good in the right, but this morning, like we've seen him struggle a bit. So yeah, will be a tough one for him.
And of course, you get the extra power going up to 350 kilowatts as well. So it's a lot to handle.
It is, and actually, I think this is quite a difficult surface right now. It feels super slippery. You've got this little layer of rain that's coming in. Obviously, the drivers aren't going to know what the track's like. They're going to get that outlap. But Van Dorn, he was the fastest in Group A this morning, and Oliver obviously just scraped in. So I think Oliver will be feeling the heat into this first dual stage.
Now, the other thing, Jaguar, what's going on there? Having had their first result yesterday where both the drivers were in the points, neither of them have got through to the duels, including yesterday's race winner, Mitch Evans, totally off the pace.
Yeah, very difficult day for them, especially when it dries out. It looks like they can't keep up with the performance of the Porsche powertrain, for example. In the wet, they were doing much better. So yeah, either a bit of tire pressures or the way they extract the performance from the tires, or it's just the general package. I think only one powertrain did well. I think it was one from the Aviation Racing team. So yeah, but they're good in the race. So when you look at Nick Cassidy, what he did yesterday, how he moved forward. So yeah, let's look out for him.
Well, let's find out how Mitch Evans reflects on that qualifying session. He's with Saunders.
Mitch Evans, incredibly tight qualifying groups there, narrowly missing out on the duels. But we do know what is possible in a race like today here in Berlin.
Yeah, obviously a shame. It was one of those sessions that could have gone either way. Obviously, evolving track, very hard to predict the conditions, to know what to do with the tires, how hard to push. So it could have been better, could have been worse. But we were kind of predicting it to be wetter than what it was, so that didn't really help things. But I think the race today is going to be, yeah, track position is not going to be as critical, hopefully. But yeah, I guess we'll be starting kind of mid-pack, so it's not a disaster, but it's always nice to be a little bit further up.
Thanks, Mitch.
Good to hear from Mitch Evans there. Changing conditions. Quite interesting looking at the duels as well. So Pascal Wehrlein is going to be going up against Nico Müller. This is the first time Nico Müller has ever been in the duels. So it's the first time he will have had to have done that 350 kilowatt lap under this pressure. Is that going to play into Wehrlein's strengths?
Well, Wehrlein's very strong in qualifying. Under pressure, he does really good. So for sure, he has a bit more confidence there also from the performance from yesterday. And Nico Müller is looking for a good result. So let's see how he puts it together. Definitely, he wants to end the season on the high. So it will be a good show.
Yeah, and also, I suppose you've got to use your quarterfinal to practice for the semi-final if you're getting through it, and ultimately whoever you go up against in the final. Let's take a look at how the duels now sit and who will be going head-to-head with who. We do know that it is Dan Ticktum against Taylor Barnard there to kick things off in the quarterfinals. Then it will be our championship leader, Oliver Rowland. All eyes on him, hoping for those 3 valuable points against Stoffel van Dorn. Then Robin Freins will be going up against the Porsche driver, Antonio Felix da Costa. And then Nico Müller against Pascal Wehrlein. Also really keen to get those 3 points in the bag. So that is how the quarterfinals are going to look. I might have to get some put some pole position predictions again. Now we know who's getting through, and also the fact that the conditions are turning, the sun's coming out again. Do we need the umbrella? We don't need the umbrella. It's all very confusing. Yeah, what should we do? A little dance with it. Yeah, who would your vote for pole position go to now, Andre, that we've seen what we've seen?
I think Pascal Wehrlein, he's on it.
I was going to say, am I allowed to go the same?
I think you are, because there's no forfeit involved in this.
Okay, oh, good.
So
No
we do
pies in the face
prediction.
today.
No pies in the face. There's something else for after the show anyway. But that's more on that later. So you're going to also go for Pascal Wehrlein?
Yeah, I think if it stays dry, I'm not sure though, because there are some ominous clouds, but I think if it stays dry, I would say one of the Porsche drivers for sure. Maybe Antonio. I'll say Antonio.
Oh, there we go. She swapped allegiances very fast there. Let's go down to Billy Munganar, who's at the E-Pad.
Thank you, Nikki. So someone we want to have a little look at the E-Pad with and look at their lap in the dry conditions. Our race winner from yesterday, a man who excelled in the wet weather conditions, who missed out on getting through in qualifying there by 0.03 of a second. But we haven't had a chance to show you an onboard lap like this around this Tempelhof circuit. So let's enjoy Mitch Evans' lap here. The start of the lap, very consistent, very smooth. Turns 3 and 4, we saw a lot of drivers struggling with the car moving around and sliding. But Mitch looks so far so good. He was a personal best on his final lap in all 3 sectors, just missing a little bit of time everywhere compared to the Porsches of Pascal Wehrlein. There was one mistake potentially that I saw in the last corner, which I'm looking forward to showing you guys and just giving you a bit more in-depth around that. But the man who was so strong around here in the wet weather conditions, unfortunately just missing out by 0.03 of a second. The margins were so tight here around the Tempelhof circuit. I'm going to slow this down for you here and just want you guys to look at the steering angle as we go in to the final part of the lap, because he had a slide. Let me roll that back for you a second so you can see that kick of oversteer here. We've got a left-hand corner, and you look where the steering is facing. It's over to the right-hand side. It's really not ideal for Mitch Evans there. The instability in that car coming out in these dry weather conditions, that might have just been the difference maker here, because 0.03 of a second around this circuit, tiny margins making a difference here. And unfortunately for our race winner from yesterday, Mitch Evans, not making it through to the dual stages. He'll be really disappointed with that after such a great day yesterday.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, Billy. One driver who haven't really touched upon is Robin Freins. You know, he did a great qualifying yesterday and is back in the mix again today.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see. Obviously, I think he's the only Jaguar powertrain that's got through into the duels today. So he said yesterday he loves driving in the wet, but actually maybe he loves driving in the dry as well, because he put together a really solid lap there. I'm sure he's going to be wanting to capitalise on it and maybe learn from yesterday. Today's not a pit boost race, but maybe learn from yesterday how he could have stayed up towards the front of the grid, because, yeah, he was in a great position starting on the front row and just wasn't able to capitalise it.
He was indeed. So we are going to be kicking the first quarter-final duel off with Dan Ticktum against Taylor Barnard in the McLaren. Here we go. Over to Tom Brooks and Alan Manish.
So then, over to the first of the quarter-final duels here today for round 14. Dan Ticktum versus Taylor Barnard going head-to-head. 80% of you reckon it will go the way of the youngster in the Neon McLaren. Well, you'd be hard to bet against that, given the fact that Barnard is undefeated in the quarterfinals this season. He's won all of his 5 appearances. Barnard has also defeated Ticktum at the same stage in the most recent duels, of course, in Jakarta a fortnight ago. But McLaren have never started in the top 8 in Semperhof since they took over the former Mercedes EQ team back at the end of 2022.
Sure you stop at the last red light, not a repeater.
Yeah, got it. Should I go rearwards on bias just in case I lock fronts? I'm just a bit worried I'm going to no turn.
Yeah, I think get a little read in the last hairpin and see if you need to react.
So we now go from 300 to 350 kilowatts of power. We've got all-wheel drive in this session as well, and there's one flying lap for the drivers. So Ticktum and Barnard now out on track, but separately, as it were, so they don't run into one another or compromise each other's laps. And this is going to be pretty interesting.
Certainly is. I think the area that Dan Ticktum was talking about with his engineers, should he just go to the rear on the brake balance, that means that the pressure is distributed more on the rear, because that first braking and into turn 1 is going to be critical. If you lock up there, you're gone, your lap's gone, you can't recover it. And so therefore he's just trying to ensure that he's got maybe a safety margin in his braking area into turn 1.
It's such tiny margins as well, Tom. Just looking at FP1 times in 350 kilowatts, Taylor Barnard was 7th, Dan Ticktum was 5th, 0.07 of a second between the two of them in free practice 1. So based off of that, this is going to be a close quarter-final.
So Ticktum across the timing line. The rain has started to come down. Has it affected the grip on the circuit too much, though? Down into turn 1, into turn 2 we go then. A little bit deep on the apex for Ticktum.
Yeah, missed the apex very, very slightly, but he kept the momentum up through the corner into 3 and 4 now, as we on the right-hand side see Taylor Barnard, who spots the apex perfectly and then gets on the power.
Yeah, nice and crisp there for Taylor Barnard. First safety time, 17.1 for Dan Ticktum. What about Taylor Barnard? What will he be able to do in response to that? Actually, 1/10 of a second slower, so a bit more conservative maybe for the McLaren driver in that first part of the lap.
Yeah, but just remember there's been a little drizzle of rain since we had the last session, so the circuit is slightly more greasy and more slippery, and they're basically on a voyage of discovery as they're doing this quali lap.
Yeah, Ticktum picking up a bit more of an advantage in that second sector, 25.7 in that middle part of it for the Cupra Kiro driver. Through the final part of it we go. Barnard, again, the gap increasing up to nearly half a second. Ticktum is performing exceptionally well here, and he comes across the line with a 59 flat. That's a brilliant lap time then from the most recent race winner in Formula E, the Porsche powertrain, powering him to a brilliant time. What about Barnard? Can he pull anything back? No, he can't. He is out of qualifying, and for the first time, Taylor Barnard is defeated in the quarterfinals in his Formula E career. Dan Ticktum goes through to the semis.
The rain that Alan mentioned, it's definitely had an impact there looking at the lap times. We were expecting to see them within the 57s potentially, and a 59.0 being enough for Dan Ticktum there. So it looks like a really tricky set of circumstances out there for the drivers, doesn't it, Alan? Because it's not quite 100% dry.
Yeah, well done. You're through. 6/10. Great lap. Remember, brake warm-up.
Alex Hui delighted with that one. Properly sideways, wasn't he, going through that final series of corners. Over to quarter-final 2, Oliver Rowland versus Stoffel Vandoorne. Rowland needs to get the better of Vandoorne to get into that fight for the semi-finals, and then hopefully the finals to get those 3 points for pole position here today. It will reduce the margin that he needs down to 5 here this afternoon to outscore his rivals. Down to turn 1, snap of oversteer.
Yeah, he was right on the brake. You see the car bouncing around underneath him and losing traction, gaining traction again, but he still managed to get it in there as Oliver Rowland is now throwing this car around.
Faster in the first sector than Ticktum. 16.8 then for Oliver Rowland. Vandoorne, though, what can he do? Does he spot the apex? Pretty okay down at turn 2. Nicely done there for the 2022 World Champion.
I've got to say, Roland's car doesn't look very stable. It's not as very smooth. He's fighting on the steering wheel all the way through. It's quick without a question, but you see it as he's dancing into every corner. It's alive as opposed to it's docile. He's working on that steering wheel.
He was 3/100ths of a second up in the first sector compared to Stoffel van Dorn. What about the second sector, though? He's built out an advantage just a little bit more, nearly up to a 1/10 of a second between himself and the 2022 champion. Maybe a touch wide in that penultimate corner there for Roland. What's the score on the door going to be, though, as he comes to the timing line? It's a 58.9, so nicely done there for him. He's 2.5 tenths in front of Van Dorn, but Van Dorn improving in the second sector. Big snap of oversteer, though. That could be lap time gone there for Van Dorn in the Maserati. It is. He'll come to the timing line. It's not going to be as quick as Oliver Roland as he takes the checkered flag at 59.2. Roland will go head-to-head with Dan Ticktum in the first of the semi-finals.
That was definitely a working lap by Oliver Roland. He was hustling the car around to get the lap time out of it, but clearly able to achieve it faster as well than Ticktum was able to do in the previous one. Circuit, I think, is getting a little bit drier again.
Yeah, nicely done there for Oliver Roland. Team radio.
Jump.
Quarterfinal 3, Robin Freins versus Antonio Felix da Costa. Envision versus Tag Heuer Porsche. This is the only Jaguar powertrain that we've got in the quarterfinals, and the Porsche one looks to be working brilliantly, let's be completely honest, because Dan Ticktum with the Cupra Kiro has done very well. We've also seen the two Tag Heuer Porsches going through, as well as Nico Müller.
Yeah, 4 Porsche powertrain cars through into the dual stages of qualifying here. Robin Freins didn't set a 350 kilowatt lap in free practice 1, so this potentially could be new ground for him right now, which makes things even trickier for him.
Yeah, he was pretty quick in the wet yesterday, was Robin Freins. What's it going to look, though, as we've now slowed the laps down? So we've got them side by side. They aren't like this on track, but we've managed to give you a direct comparison. Da Costa on the right, Freins on the left. First sector looks to be pretty good here for Antonio Felix da Costa.
Both of them, actually. Both of them into the 16s, which in comparison to what we've seen earlier, we were expecting low 17s to be a good first sector.
As they now drop into the hairpin, and both are slightly different lines there, but it's nip and tuck between the two of them.
Yeah, a bit more of a tight line on the exit of turn 7 there for Da Costa. 25.5 in that middle sector for the Tag Heuer Porsche driver. What does it look like, though, for Robin Freins? 25.5 as well. Pretty even Stevens. 7/100ths of a second separating these two drivers, up to about a 1/10 of a second or so as they come through the final couple of corners. Snap of oversteer in the penultimate one there for Da Costa. We've seen that for quite a few drivers, and it's allowed Freins to close that deficit down as they come to take the checkered flag. Who gets it? It's Da Costa by 8/100ths of a second, to the delight of Florian Modlinger and the Tag Heuer Porsche team. It's Da Costa through into semi-final 2.
You got a feel for Robin Freins there, because that was also a mighty impressive lap from him, a 58.3, faster than any of the other laps in the first 2 quarterfinals, but just missing out.
Porsche's home race, of course, this weekend here in Berlin, so giving them something to smile about. As we look at Da Costa, this is through turns 3 and 4 with a super slow-mo. Car looks relatively compliant through there, I must say.
In slow-mo. In real speed, it's definitely not.
Quarter-final 4 then, this will be interesting. Nico Müller versus Pascal Wehrlein, Andretti Porsche versus Factory Porsche, and the reigning world champion has got the predictor vote well and truly sewn up. Will he have the lap time, though?
He has looked mighty impressive in the group stages. Having a 3/10 advantage is huge, but the balance will shift significantly with 4-wheel drive and 350 kilowatts. What can the Porsche driver do? This is important for his championship there.
Yeah, but Nico Müller looked as if he missed the apex there in turn 1, went in deep, kept the momentum through the corner, but wasn't as neat and tidy as now we're seeing on the right-hand side. Pascal Wehrlein in, spots the apex and gets through.
16.7 in the first sector for Nico Müller, so it's still a competitive first sector, but what can Pascal Wehrlein do? And wow, a 16.5, a 2/10 advantage, a strong start to the lap here for Pascal Wehrlein.
Yeah, great stuff for him then. Wider line on the way into turn 9 there for Nico Müller. Amazingly, this is his first dual appearance of season 11, believe it or not. Let's see, though, what Wehrlein can do in the middle sector. 25.6, and he's increasing the advantage still. He is absolutely on a flyer here, is Pascal Wehrlein. 0.3 of a second the advantage as we come through that middle sector. He's built it up to nearly half a second. He's a different postcode compared to Nico Müller. Müller comes over the line with a 58. 28.473. But Verline, unless he makes a mistake in the final couple of corners, is going to absolutely trounce that here in the Tag Heuer Porsche. He comes to the timing line, takes the checkered flag at 57.8, and Verline is through. He will go head-to-head with his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa in semi-final 2.
That's the second fastest lap of the weekend we've seen. We've only seen one faster, and it was Pascal Verline by a matter of hundredths in free practice. So this is a man who is really dialed in and performing to the highest level, Alan.
Yeah, he's hooked up. He's hooked up. He's got confidence as well after his race yesterday where he came through from 9th to 2nd. And he's competitive in every condition. Dry, wet, intermediate. He's right there on it right now.
2 pole positions for Pascal Verline in season 11. 1 in Sao Paulo, 1 in Mexico. Ever since then, the grid positions have been relatively stable, sort of in the top 10, but nothing really to shout about. However, this could be a potentially brilliant opportunity for the German driver. He needs those 3 points. They will be absolutely critical to close the deficit down to Oliver Rowland in the Drivers' Championship and keep his hopes alive for another day.
Tom, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm already looking to the potential final that we could see here with Oliver Rowland and Pascal Verline potentially could line up in a final against each other.
Good job, mate. Fastest. 57.8, fastest of the session.
Sun is out a little bit as well now. And so the circuit will be heating up, slightly different conditions again, especially more for Ticktum and Roland, because when they were out at the beginning, then it was still a bit greasier, a bit colder, with some drizzle.
Well, let's remind you how we got here then for round 14 in the duels. Ticktum versus Barnard up first of all, Roland versus Van Dorn, Freitz versus da Costa, and Muller versus Verline. From the quarterfinals, we see Ticktum and Roland going head-to-head in semi-final 1. And then we'll see the 2 Tag Heuer Porsches of Antonio Felix da Costa and Pascal Verline facing off against one another. No love lost between those 2 drivers this weekend, but what is the lineup for the final going to look like? So just under 10 minutes to go until the duels for the semi-finals will get underway. This man here, Oliver Rowland, it's now action stations for him. He needs to outperform Dan Ticktum. In terms of the lap times, it's quite hard to compare between them because track conditions were constantly evolving over the course of that lap there, Billy. The upshot is Rowland was the quicker of the 2, just.
The tyre, do what you need for the tyres and think about.
What a lap.
So we'll be against Antonio, second car out.
Great lap time there for Pascal Verline. Just needs to do it twice more and he's quid in.
Yeah, I mean, the session, every single quarter-final there, the track was definitely getting drier. And I think now, if it stays like this, we are in dry conditions, completely dry conditions for the drivers. The same as what we saw in free practice 1. And Pascal, very happy with the car balance, very happy with his lap. He just needs to replicate it, Tom.
Yeah, it certainly does. So preparations now ongoing. What do you think they're going to be doing? You know, are they making changes to the car between these sessions?
If you're Pascal Verline, you're going, do not touch this car. This car is on rails right now. Don't do anything to upset the balance.
You hear that? He said, oh, what a lap. That is absolute satisfaction with the lap he did. He knew it was a good lap, but it was tidy everywhere. He was extending the gap all the way through. He had a big delta in the first sector, over 0.2 of a second.
Yeah, go to the coffee bar. Don't touch the car at all. So, Pascal Verline and Antonio Felix da Costa, these are the 2 drivers who will be going head-to-head in the semi-finals. These are their laps from the quarter-finals. So let's have a look at the comparison between the 2.
Yeah, different conditions that they were both facing out there. And Antonio Felix da Costa was about 4 and a bit temps slower than Pascal Verline, so potentially the track a little bit dry, but also we did see Pascal had 3 temps in hand in Group B in qualifying. So he's just been a man, Alan, that's just been really comfortable in all conditions.
He's very focused. He's very quick in qualifying. We know that. And he's actually extremely focused in terms of making sure that he comes out of this weekend with the maximum points possible. And to do that, starting on the front row is the best place to do it.
Slightly different approach there in the second hairpin and turns 8 and 9 there. Pascal Verline not veering it off quite as much as Antonio Felix da Costa. That's the only real noticeable line difference that I can see looking at the side-by-side comparisons here. But they have a little brief moment to go over any data and to assess where they're at with each other. But at the minute, it's Pascal Verline with the upper hand, you have to say.
Yeah, keen to see what the conditions are going to do between now and the semi-finals. The rain looks like it's staying away for the time being. There's certainly some brighter skies that we've got overhead compared to what we had earlier on this morning, and indeed for the remainder of this weekend. Up first, though, it'll be Dan Ticktum versus Oliver Rowland, and that's going to be a very interesting fight between the two British drivers as we wait for Da Costa to get himself ready for his semi-final. So over to the semi-final duels then. Not long to go until we get this one underway. This is Antonio Felix da Costa in the Tag Heuer Porsche. This is the moment that really kicked off his weekend in not particularly the best way he'd have wanted. The contact between himself and Pascal Wehrlein coming along the start-finish straight sent da Costa spearing into the barrier. Let's have a look at this. So da Costa goes through. We're on board here with Pascal Wehrlein. Wait for it. Bosh.
They were both doing their practice qualifying laps, and Antonio Felix da Costa was finishing one lap and Wehrlein starting the other. And a bit of confusion basically at the end of the day. Wehrlein accelerated quicker than da Costa, and I think just completely misjudged it.
I think something that's worth noting, Alan, just talking about the fact that there's two teammates there, and obviously you can see Florian Modeling are really disappointed, but how they've bounced back from that, because we were all, when we saw that, thinking, this is not good for the team dynamic, this is going to be real tensions in the garage. But in the wet weather conditions, they were strong yesterday, and they got two cars in a semi-final today.
Completely, and yesterday he also had a grid penalty as well due to that incident, dropped him down to 9th on the grid, came through to 2nd, and was super competitive.
Absolutely. Well, one driver that will not be in the semi-finals is Taylor Barnard, unfortunately. He was defeated by Dan Ticktum. Let's go down and catch up with the young Briton. He is with Saunders in pit lane.
Taylor Barnard, until today you were undefeated in quarter-final duels, but this was the best that was on the cards today, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the conditions were up and down. It was just raining just before my duel, so I think it was very difficult to predict the kind of conditions that we were going into and what kind of settings to put in the car. Obviously, I've just jumped out of the car, so I don't know exactly the score and where we lost the time, but I mean, P7 or P8, wherever I'll be starting, is still a decent position for myself in the race, and especially in the kind of energy-saving race that we're expecting, then anything can happen.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you.
Yep, good to hear there from Taylor Barnard. Anything can happen. Incidentally, 4 out of the last 5 races have been won from lower than 8th on the grid. So being in P7, not necessarily a bad position to be in. We're expecting it to be quite an energy-critical race here this afternoon, if it stays dry in particular. So be keen to see how that's going to work out. High-energy sort of pack racing, really. The wide nature of this circuit will certainly elevate that as well. So being in P7, I think he's got a good opportunity to get a strong result if the car is quick under racing conditions.
Well, he's been pretty competitive and feisty and able to get himself up into 3rd in the championship so far this season. So I think Taylor Barnard, without doubt, will be in the mix somewhere. Finished 4th yesterday. And so we now look at Oliver Rowland.
Absolutely. Well, one other driver who will not be out in this session is Nico Muller, and he also caught up with Saunders a few moments ago.
Nico Muller, your first appearance in the qualifying duels, so a great step up in performance in qualifying, but to go up against a contender like Pascal Wehrlein, never easy.
No, but first of all, yeah, happy to have made it into the duels finally. I think we had the potential, at least in Jakarta, so and a few occasions before that as well. So finally in there, and then yeah, a bit of a dive into the unknown with the conditions being tricky and stuff. I think we didn't have our tires in the best shape anymore as well after the strategy we opted for in practice and qualifying. So that didn't help. But all in all, yeah. I think we can be pleased with that starting position, even though I expect a race where that doesn't really matter so much, but we'll take it.
Thoughts ahead of the race from where you're starting?
Yeah, it will be a jungle today out there. I think there will be lots of slipstream effect around this track. We start with relatively low targets. That means the consumption we aim to consume per lap is relatively low on average. So yeah, well, I think we'll see lots of overtaking.
Thanks, Nico.
Thank you.
Lots of overtaking sounds like a good plan to me. We'll see what Nico Muller can do from where he's lining up on the grid, heading the Andretti Porsche charge. Well, let's remind you of how we got here then for the duels ahead of round 14. So Dan Ticktum and Taylor Barnard going head-to-head against one another. Saw Ticktum getting the better of his compatriot. Rowland versus Van Dorn sees Rowland progressing forwards as well. Frights at da Costa. Of course, it was da Costa who got the better of it, meaning it's an all-Tag Heuer Porsche semi-final 2, as Wehrlein was streaked ahead of Nico Muller, nearly half a second's advantage the German reigning world champion had over Nico Muller. So then, over to semi-final 1, Dan Ticktum versus Oliver Rowland. Now, Dan Ticktum has been brilliant over the last few weekends. Let's not do him any discredit. However, Oliver Rowland, we know he can really pull it out of the bag. What do you think is going to happen here, Billy, with your crystal ball?
Well, I've got a stat for you chaps. They were 4th and 5th in free practice 1. How much do you think separated them?
Enlighten me, go on.
They did the exact same lap time. So talk about being close. This is going to be unbelievably close based off that.
Yeah, I'm keen to see what's going to happen here, because we can see that the Porsche powertrain's working well. No, surprise there at all, really. Will that be the deciding factor here?
I think the deciding factor will be is how quickly does Dan Ticktum get the feeling for the car into the first corner. We saw that Oliver Rowland's got the car and it's moving around underneath it, but he's able to extract the lap time out of it. And so to me, the question is Dan able to do that in the first couple of corners to get the first sector into the game?
We've had no rain since the quarterfinals and the semi-finals. Just to remind you as well, Oliver Rowland does have a 5-place grid penalty, courtesy of the incident he had with Stoffel van Dorn yesterday. Incidentally, the driver he went head-to-head with in the quarterfinals a few minutes ago. But that's a 5-place grid penalty. Even if he does qualify on pole position, he'll still get those 3 points. He'll still get the trophy. He'll just start from a best place of 6th on the grid here today. So down in towards turn 9 and 10 here for Oliver Rowland. Dan Ticktum is winding himself up a bit further down the road for his start of the flying lap in the Cupra Kiro as he comes across the timing line.
Oh, here we go.
He's not hanging around here, is Dan Ticktum, is he? Over the timing line we go. Down into turn 1 and turn 2 is where it could be won or lost here. Let's see how much Dan Ticktum puts into it. Looks okay.
Gone for quite a narrow approach there. It looked like he was, leaving a little bit of margin in terms of using all the width, or as much as we've seen other drivers use going down into turn 1 and 2. Oliver Rowland definitely moving around more in the braking zone down into turn 1 and 2 there.
Yeah, without doubt. And the other thing is that Ticktum change of direction through this section was pretty sensational. Much nicer than Rowland's Nissan there. The change of direction for Ticktum was good.
Yeah, through the first sector, 16.6 for both of those drivers, 0.003 of a second to the advantage of Oliver Rowland. Into turns 9 and 10, maybe a little bit deep there for Dan Ticktum.
Yeah, a little bit, but the sector times compared to what Pascal Wehrlein did in the quarterfinals, they're there or thereabouts there for Dan Ticktum, maybe a few hundredths slower than what Pascal was able to achieve. Now Oliver Rowland's going to cross the beam and he's lost a 1/10 of a second. This is going to be tight.
Certainly is. To the timing line then for Dan Ticktum. What's it going to be for him as he comes to take the checkered flag? A 58 flat for him. Rowland's picking up time though in the third and final sector. He needs that time as well. Is he going to be able to gain it? Will he lose it? He does lose it. Oliver Rowland is out of qualifying in the semi-finals. Dan Ticktum goes through into the front row fight here in Berlin. So the Cupra Kiro working brilliantly here at Tempelhof, and Dan Ticktum gets the better of the championship leader.
Sensational result for Dan Ticktum right there. So it was a really tight one there. It was a matter of hundredths in all the sectors. And looking at Dan Ticktum, compared to Pascal Wehrlein in the quarterfinal, he just lost a little bit everywhere. So he's in the final now, and if we expect Pascal to make it through, he's got his work cut out, Alan.
I think he's down into 15 where Rowland loses it. He hits the puddle there, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's gone through the puddle and it floats in. He's a bit wide into that final corner. He had a very good acceleration out of the previous corner and was gaining all the way down the straight, but ultimately just was a bit too wide on the entry to there.
Battle of the two TAG Heuer Porsches at Tempelhof then. So Da Costa versus Pascal Wehrlein as they come to the timing line. It's Da Costa who's spearheading their charge. He begins his flying lap first of all. Down into turn 1 and 2. A little bit deep on the apex there for 2 at Sky Master.
Yeah, a slightly different approach there that the Porsche drivers seem to have. They're using more of the road down into turn 1. It means that sometimes they're negating the apex at 2. We see Pascal Wehrlein, he's actually even wider initially through the kink at turn 1, but he gets nicely down to the apex there.
Look at that advantage in the first mini sector, 0.2 of a second, and he's built it up to nearly 0.3 as he comes through to complete that first sector proper. So Pascal Wehrlein on an absolute fly then here. Da Costa coming out of turns 9 and 10, right up against the wall on the outside of the corner as he tries to extract as much performance as he can.
It's not as if Da Costa's slow, it's the fact that Wehrlein's super quick.
He's a little bit deep there into that final trio of corners there for Da Costa. That could cost him a Couple of tenths of a second there or so. Unless Verline makes a mistake, Da Costa comes to the timing line. He'll take the checkered flag with a 58.4, but Verline is in a completely different league here. He's doing exactly what he did in the quarterfinals, outclassing his competition. He's got nearly 7 tenths of a second of an advantage as he comes to take the checkered flag. Pascal Verline absolutely obliterates his teammates at 57.756. He goes through into the finals, and he will face off against Dan Ticktum.
He's found a 10th from what he did in the quarterfinals, which looked exceptional, and that is now the fastest lap of the weekend. So he's finding those fastest sectors at the critical stage here.
The very good thing about Pascal Verline, he's able to build incrementally on already an extremely good lap. It's not luck, this is judgment.
You will be against Ticktum in the final,
If ever there was a weekend that Pascal Verline needed to pull something out of the bag, it was here, and he is doing so superlatively, it has to be said. What a fantastic lap time that was.
Yeah, not only is it getting pole position itself, but it's the points in the championship which will be critical for Pascal Verline. Oliver Rowland was the 3rd fastest qualifier, but he's got that penalty to deal with as well. So this is huge for the championship.
The points are one thing as well, Billy, but we also know the pressure. It just adds a little bit of pressure into that system.
Playing devil's advocate here, we've got Ticktum in a Porsche powertrain car. This is their home weekend here, Tag Heuer Porsche. There's a lot on the line in terms of the teams, potentially the Drivers' Championship as well.
Where are you going with this, Tom?
Well, where do you think I'm going with it? What do you think that they'll be having a quiet word?
You tell Dan Ticktum he's got to finish second.
Good luck with that one.
Good point, well made. Coming down into the second corner, this is Pascal Verline. We're right on board with it. It was just smooth as you like, wasn't it?
He just navigates that first couple of corners so well, because it's hard to get down to the apex at 2 and judge how wide you can afford to be wide of the apex in 1. And now we go through into 6 and 7. The first bunch point of the race, really, where we saw a few incidents. Oliver Rowland getting caught up with Stoffel van Dorn. He's just navigating it so well. It looks smooth on the wheel. There's no huge moments of oversteer or the car being unbalanced. And this is where I noticed in the quarterfinal, slightly different line. He's not Ving it off as much as some of the other drivers are. Through the apex of 8 and 9 there, Pascal Verline, and into the last couple of corners, through that puddle that we saw kick Oliver Rowland into a slide. And again, just smooth on the wheel, Alan.
It was really, really smooth and tidy. That's where he's able to just gain those advantages. In comparison to Ticktum's semi, then there's 0.3 of a second difference between the two.
Yeah, definitely Verline's one to lose this one if he can get the lap time on the board. 57.756 for Pascal Verline in the semi-finals, 58 flat for Dan Ticktum, and not long to go until we see those two face off against one another.
The one thing I will say, Dan Ticktum can pull out an extraordinary lap when he needs to. So as much as at the minute it clearly looks like advantage to Pascal Verline, and he's been consistent in the lap times he's delivered, Dan Ticktum, he's got the same powertrain, and if he gets it all together, he could make a real challenge for this pole position.
Let's have a look here at Da Costa. He's going to hit the puddle here, a very wide line into that trio of corners. You see the snap of oversteer he has there as well. He just doesn't have as much grip underneath him as he was expecting going into that triple apex left-hander.
It's definitely been consistent throughout the whole of qualifying, that puddle, because I analysed Mitch Evans' lap at the E-pad, and he had a huge snap of oversteer into those final triple left-hander that we've got here at Tempelhof. He was actually almost full opposite lock to the right-hand side for a left-hand corner, Alan, so a bit of a Scandinavian drift.
Yeah, yeah, 110. Well done.
Yeah, it's about trying to maximise the width of the circuit and entry, but not hit the puddle at the wrong angle and then lose the actual momentum through there. It's a tricky one to do, but certainly right now it's getting drier, it's getting hotter, and so it's going to be good.
So then, this is how we got here for the duels for round 14. You can see we had Ticktum versus Barnard, Rowland versus Van Dorn, Freitz versus Da Costa, Verline versus Muller. In the semi-finals, Ticktum and Rowland, Da Costa and Verline. The upshot is the finals and the front row will be occupied by Dan Ticktum and Pascal Verline. But who will take 3 points and who will take pole position ahead of the E-Prix this afternoon? So then, not long to go until we get this one underway, about 5 minutes or so, and we'll see these cars out on track for the final time in the dual stages of qualifying. Stoffel van Dorn caught up with Saunders a few moments ago, and he said that he reckons it's going to be the biggest pack race we've ever had in Formula E history this afternoon, so that makes things quite exciting, doesn't it?
And we've had a few.
We have, yeah. We're pretty well versed in the pack racing style by now.
Good thing is that the circuit's extremely wide. You can get a lot of overtaking done into quite a few of the corners, and so it'll lend itself. That means that pole position's not necessarily super important for the race result. However, it is important for the championship and the points that can be given to the pole position winner, which at the moment, as you say, Pascal Wehrlein looks to be the one in control, but Dan Ticktum definitely will be going for it.
So just in terms of the championship, just to touch on that one while we look at Dan Ticktum's lap, if Wehrlein does get on pole, gets those 3 points, Roland will not be guaranteed the championship with a race win today. He would need Wehrlein to be off of the podium. There's plenty of time for things to change, but Roland, when did he qualify? P3, didn't he? So he's going to line up P8 on the grid at best, isn't he?
Yeah, P8, I believe, that 5-place grid penalty is where Oliver Roland will line up for the race. So he's still in the hunt there. We've seen plenty of overtakes and races won here from that sort of position on the grid.
Yeah, I don't think from that point of view, Roland's out of the game at all. But it's just another little bit of pressure. We saw him making a mistake yesterday, get involved in an incident that he didn't need to get involved in, and ultimately added to his own personal pressure to try to ensure that they win this one.
And crucially, we said that today it's in Pascal Wehrlein's hands whether the championship fight will go to London, because he's already got only a 50-point deficit now to Oliver Roland, and Roland needs to extend that to 58. So if he can, put himself in an even better position and close that gap down to 47 points with the 3 points you get for fastest qualifier for pole position. Again, it just puts a bit more pressure that Roland's going to have an extraordinary result, and Pascal Wehrlein, who's guaranteed at the minute to at least line up on the front row, is going to have a real bad day.
Yeah, it needs to have an average result, doesn't he, Pascal Wehrlein, if Roland's going to be crowned as the champion. That's, of course, providing that Wehrlein gets himself onto pole position. The gap between those two drivers, by the way, just to remind you, 50 points. Roland needs to leave this weekend with 58 points in his back pocket. That's enough for him to be crowned as world champion here in Berlin. Here he is, walking down the pit lane. And now it is all eyes on the E-Prix this afternoon, which takes place at 4 p.m. local time. There is a reminder of the Drivers' Championship. Still some great battles going on further down as well. You've got Taylor Barnard with Antonio Felix da Costa right on his coattails. Ticktum, Mortara, Gunter and Cassidy all really squeezed together in terms of the mid-pack championship standings as well. So just a couple of minutes to go until we get the finals underway for round 14. This man will not be taking part in it, unfortunately. He got as far as the semi-finals, set the third best lap time that we've seen in qualifying, but he will line up P8 on the grid with a 5-place grid penalty. Man of the moment, though, is Pascal Wehrlein. 2 of the fastest laps that we've seen so far this weekend. If he can do that again, he is in with a chance of taking 3 points and his 3rd pole position of season 11.
Yeah, for me, I think it's down to Pascal. Yeah. If he can recreate what he's already done in terms of the lap times he's produced in the semi-finals and the quarter-finals, then it feels like it could be out of Dan Ticktum's reach.
Well, we just saw Oliver Roland. Saunders is down in pit lane, catching up with the Briton.
Oliver Roland, good one-lap performance today across a variety of conditions, both in the wet and in the dry, to get into the semi-finals. But those 3 points have evaded you. A little bit more work to do now in the race.
Yeah, I mean, I would have taken P3. I think am I 3rd? Yeah, P3. Yeah, in the wet we struggled quite a lot. Was tricky, but we managed to scrape through. Then the dry was okay. We were a little bit compromised with some setup options, but I'm quite happy. I'm a little bit disappointed because I feel like I could have beaten Dan, but it is what it is.
We know that on a circuit like this, in an energy-sensitive race like we have ahead, there's lots that's possible.
Yeah, plenty of opportunities, so we have to try and do our best later. Obviously, I have 5-place grid penalty, so I should start 8th. But we can do some damage from there. Thanks, Oliver.
Yeah, good to hear there from Oliver Roland. Reckons he can do some damage from P8 on the grid. I reckon he's in with a good shout.
Yeah, it was the word damage that worries me a little bit, to be honest.
A bit worrying.
Over to the finals then, Dan Ticktum versus Pascal Wehrlein, Cupra Kiro versus Tag Heuer Porsche, and possibly the most important pole position in waiting for Pascal Wehrlein of the season.
So he's going to be the second of the runners, so Dan Ticktum is going to set the pace here. He's going to be the first one to cross the beam. This is going to be an exciting final right now.
Yeah, Ticktum's only previous dual final was in Tokyo earlier this year, where he lost to Oliver Roland, who of course he's just defeated in the semi-final today. The Cooper Kira team have taken 2 pole positions, but that came back in season 3 with Nelson Piquet in Hong Kong and Oliver Turvey in Mexico City, back when the team was called Neo. Wehrlein, meanwhile, was first in 3 dual finals this season, but that's his first dual final since, would have been since Mexico City, long time ago now. So we'll see how this one is going to work out as he blasts out onto the Berlin circuit for the final time in qualifying trim.
Crucially, what is left of those tyres? They have put a few heat cycles now through those tyres. Pascal Wehrlein has been, by definition, pushing to the limit because he's been the fastest in the quarterfinals, the semi-finals. He was fastest as well in group qualifying, so he has been the man to beat. But just making sure that he gets those tyres in the right window and he hasn't taken maybe too much out of them. That could be the only slight doubt for me.
Yeah, slight doubt, but you know, he's got to deliver it once again to beat Dan Ticktum, and for sure Dan Ticktum will be trying to maximise and get everything done. I think the big advantage that he's got is the fact he's second, so they can judge if he is in a position where he knows the time he needs to do and he knows the risks he needs to take in the last corner.
Well, let's see what Dan Ticktum can do then in the Cooper Kiro, down towards the first corner, pattering under braking on the abrasive surface. Does he get the apex of turn 2? No, he's a bit deep into there. That's already compromised his lap before it's really begun. Let's see what Wehrlein can do in response to this one. We've got it slowed down for you. We've got a side-by-side comparison. Down into the first corner we go. Into turn 2 there. Wehrlein, much neater.
Much neater, much tidier. That's not the strongest of first sectors there for Dan Ticktum. He crosses the beam with a 16.6. Wehrlein is looking like he's just over a 10th up. It's not Pascal's best through that first part of the lap, but it's certainly advantage Wehrlein.
It's neat and tidy there. He's got different lines, actually. Ticktum a lot tighter into the 2 apexes there as they run through 6 and 7, a little bit wider and a better acceleration out for Wehrlein.
Wehrlein increasing that advantage still in the second sector, up to nearly 0.2 of a second. Porsche have never taken pole position at their home race here in Berlin. Coming down into the final couple of corners, it's now or never time for Wehrlein. He's got it all in his pocket. He's got it all to lose. He needs those 3 points for pole position as we come out of the final turn to take the checkered flag and blast to the timing line. Ticktum with a 57.8, and it's Wehrlein who comes across the line, who takes pole position here for round 14 in Berlin. An absolutely dominant qualifying session from the reigning world champion. Wehrlein, who gets 3 points, keeps his championship hopes alive here this afternoon.
Yeah, the consistency has been there from Pascal Wehrlein. A 10th of a second between all 3 of his laps in the quarterfinals, the semi-finals and the finals. That is super consistent and he's dominated qualifying.
Very, very well done. Really good job.
A rare bit of flamboyance there from Pascal Wehrlein.
A lot more excited than he was when he finished second in the race yesterday. So those 3 points and pole position mean a lot to him.
57.8 then for Pascal Wehrlein, a 58 flat for Dan Ticktum. Still a very strong lap time from the Briton, but not quite enough to depose Pascal Wehrlein, to deny him pole position here in Porsche's backyard. That's fantastic. His 3rd pole position of the 2025 season, or season 11 in total, you should say, because he was on pole in Sao Paulo back in December last year. And he will now make his way into Parc Fermé to collect the Julius Baer pole position trophy, and of course those all-important 3 points as well. He closes the deficit down from 50 to 47 points in the race for the Drivers' Championship here this weekend in Berlin, giving him the best opportunity to keep his hopes alive going into London in a fortnight's time.
Well, whoever wrote the story of that qualifying session is going to have a bestseller. That was phenomenal. I mean, seeing both Porsche drivers going up against head-to-head with each other, we've seen it a couple of times before. Once again, Pascal Wehrlein moved through to the final, but he was 0.6 up on his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa. They have the same car, the same piece of machinery. I mean, he's just on flying form, isn't he?
Yeah, he was really in a league of its own. And you could see yesterday he was so disappointed not getting the win. And when he's in that zone, so focused, like, he's very hard man to beat. I've been his teammate, and sometimes he excels, he gets everything right, doesn't put a foot wrong. And yeah, it was very impressive to see. And obviously the Porsche powertrain here for the home race, very strong. The top 3 are Porsche powertrains. So it's it's a good day for them. Yes.
Yeah, an incredibly strong performance from Porsche. Dan Ticktum, though, battling there, just 0.2 off the pace. But what was lovely to hear was Pascal Wehrlein's reaction to his lap. It was a real kind of woohoo moment, which is very rare from Pascal Wehrlein. He's always a very cool customer, isn't he?
Definitely emotion. It was important to him. It was important the way that you said, Andre, that he built it up as well. And he knows that that just puts a little bit of extra pressure onto Oliver Rowland. He realises that that was an opportunity and he took it and he grabbed a hold of it. Very, very good lap, but I have to say an extremely good qualifying.
Yeah, amazing. The team's focus is on the team championship, but when you know the mindset and the psychology of a racing driver that still has a chance to win the championship, for sure he doesn't give up and he keeps this championship alive. It's a good result from Rowland, but still, you know, he will put on this fight until the end and try to bring it to London.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Oliver Rowland, obviously, because he does have that 5-place grid penalty, he does drop from P3 to P8. But actually, if you look at what Pascal Wehrlein did yesterday, he qualified in P9 and we're still on the podium in P2. So, you know, it's not all over, is it?
Oh, without doubt, it's not over. We've seen Rowland coming through from the back many, many times in the past. And to be honest, I think it could go anyway. I think qualifying was about the 3 points. It wasn't really much of an indicator for the end of the race.
So what's going to happen at the start of this race then? Who's going to maximise the opportunity?
Well, let's see. It's an easy track to overtake. You know, you can drive 2-3 wide here. So let's see if it will be dry. Who is the most efficient? Who uses the tires the best? And who stays out of trouble? You know, you're not safe from anything here. And as we saw yesterday, it's easy to pass one driver, but then you hit the driver in front. That's what happened to Oliver. So we can see a lot of that today.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we do get into all the race action, I think shortly we will be hearing from our pole sitter, Pascal Wehrlein. So while Pascal Wehrlein gets prepared, we will be interviewing him in a few moments' time. 2 hours between now and basically rolling out to the grid. Are they going to be, or what conversations are going to be going on between Pascal Wehrlein and the rest of his team? That car did look like it was on absolute rails, so I guess you don't touch it.
It was on rails in the dry, it was on rails in the wet yesterday, so it's on rails, I think, is the way you want to do it. For me, the question is what's going to happen with the weather? You know, we've seen different weather forecasts coming through. We had spits of rain there just before the qualifying session started, so it's really about making sure that you can predict that for your tyre pressures as much as anything else, I would suggest.
Interesting, obviously, not to see, I think, only one Jag powertrain, Robin Freins, up there in the duels. But then we saw such a dominant performance from Mitch Evans yesterday. What's his opportunity going to be? Do you think he can move through the field? I mean, he did only, to be fair, miss out on the group stages by, I think, 0.03 of a second. So he was so close, but, you know, missing out.
Yeah, super close, but we've seen them struggle. They don't have the ultimate performance. Otherwise, you would see more Jaguar powertrains up in the front. So that's always a bad sign. But in the race, you know, you can do good strategy. There will be attack mode. There will be pit boost. So let's see how he gets through the field. He starts in 10th position and definitely has a bit of better feeling from yesterday, from this good result. And he knows you can move forward in the race. So he'll definitely try something.
Yeah, well, let's hear from our pole sitter in Berlin. It's Pascal Wehrlein with Katie.
Pascal Wehrlein, you've taken Porsche's first home pole position and some critical 3 points for your championship fight. How important are those fights going to be to try to take this championship down to London?
Well, it's great, first of all, to have the performance. I think the whole weekend, no matter if it was wet or dry, we were really competitive. So yeah, today we are starting from the front, but actually in the race there's quite a lot of energy management required. So the starting position is not as important, but still it's good to have a good performance and yeah, looking forward to the race.
You say that, but you do have a lot of Porsches between you and Rowland out on track today. Do you think then we might see some team efforts coming into play to try and help you secure some victories?
I don't know what they will do, but for sure would be good if the elbows are out. Mine are out definitely, and yeah, let's see where we go.
And obviously we have no pit boost today. How different do you think you're going to play it in terms of strategy and that energy management?
Yeah, it will be crucial to be very efficient in the beginning, to save energy, and then to go at the right time. Also with the attack mode, to plan it properly. Yeah, I guess you want some slipstream in that race, so leading the whole race doesn't feel like a good option. But the good thing is we have Dan very close, Antonio's quite close, so should be okay.
Have a bit of protection there. Okay, well, congratulations. It's time to present the Julius Baer Pole Position Trophy, presented by Veronica Papouche and Minna Hagel, Flughafen Tempelhof Accommodation.
A nice bit of silverware for his trophy cabinet. Yes, Antonio Felix da Costa, his teammate, isn't going to be far behind, starting from P3. Now, we saw at the start of the weekend, those two had a clash in FP1. Okay, it was a mistake, and Florian Modlinger had to have some pretty stern words to say, guys, you know, give each other some space on the track. But at this point in the championship, there's a title on the line. How's that going to play out?
Well, that's going to be interesting to see how Porsche will be able to control these three guys, because, you know, obviously their focus is on the manufacturer's championship. If they can have a sniff of the driver's title, they will do, but there's still, you know, the individual motivation of each driver, and that sometimes you can't control it, you can't stop it. And Dan wants to do well as also, he knows he has a Porsche powertrain, but he doesn't race for them, he's not paid by them, so he wants to put on a good performance as well. To you know, he won in Jakarta, he feels like he can do it, so it's to look out for.
Let's hear from Dan Ticktum on starting from the front row of the grid in P2.
Dan Ticktum, another front row start off the back of a win in Jakarta. The momentum's really building for you.
Yeah, it's good. No complaints.
We've obviously seen the standings in the team's championship, and we know the pressure that Porsche are under. Was there any conversations before the duel on playing the team game?
Absolutely not, no. I think as long as you're starting in the top three here, you know, if Pascal's starting in the top three, that's good. I mean, we've Porsche 1, 2, 3, so it's good. Yeah, it's good.
Good luck for the race.
What a breakthrough season Dan Ticktum is having at the moment. I mean, what a way to, you know, not finish the season, because we've still got the doubleheader in London, his home race, but a brilliant position to be in.
Oh, he is. He's had a really strong run. He's always been quick. Dan's always been fast, but now he's been able to actually deliver it. And the result in Jakarta, I think, is a breakthrough for him.
So there we have it. That is the front row. All set. Pascal Wehrlein in pole. Dan Ticktum alongside. But the teammate of Pascal, Antonio Felix Costa, getting in on all the action in P3. Join us for the race in 2 hours.